Val.
Hello, Miss Wendy.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Looking fabulous. Just saying.
And you, as always.
Just saying. Welcome to Wicked Women, everybody. It's Sunday. It's Sunday night. It's just a dinsy-winsy past 10 o'clock. And apologize for being a little bit late, but you're here, which is the good thing. And we hope you've all had a great week. I want to welcome to Sandra and Carleen and to Spirit and everybody else that's watching us. Welcome. It's 10 o'clock-ish in the UK, and I believe it's 5 o'clock where you are, Val?
It is 5:12.
5:12 p.m. So we're just one of 5 hours between us.
Yeah.
How's your week been?
Well, I don't want to say terrible, but I had to have a colonoscopy. So I didn't really want to say my week's been shitty, but
Oh my God.
I mean, you got to tell the truth. So
yes, those things are never pleasant, are they? They're never pleasant at all. I can honestly say that my week has not been great either. So between you and me across the miles, I could do with a better week. And it's my birthday coming up soon, so it's come on, let's make it better.
Right.
Who's that come to join us?
That's Honey. Come here, Honey.
My one is here. Like you can just, well, you can't actually see him, but he's right behind there. He's asleep in his little thing.
Can you see her?
She's so sweet.
See her tail.
Steph. Hi, Steph. Yes, Carleen, it is my birthday on the 16th of January. Oh God, I'm a Capricorn. Carleen, we really hope you're feeling better as well. It's lovely that you joined us.
Absolutely.
We've been sending lots of positive thoughts and energy all that way. This week, interesting topic. Like Scotty often says on Robertson, people ask us to cover, and this is one. Oh yes, Tracy's as well this week. Happy birthday early. This is a subject that is actually really important to me as well as everybody else. She says knocking the microphone over, because communication is so important in our lives. Right. But for some reason, it doesn't always go well between the male of the species and the female, because we come from very, very different ways. And the reason I use Men from Mars, Women from Venus, you probably remember the famous book, Val, that was written by American author John Gray, who states that most relationship problems between men and women are a result of fundamental psychological differences where they're from distant planets, like men from Mars, women from Venus, and each has their own society and customs, but not of the other. Right. And one example is that men's complaint is that they offer solutions to problems that women bring up in conversation. And the women are not necessarily interested in solving these problems, but want to talk about them. Therefore, the book was there to say, let's get you to understand each other. It actually sold 15 million copies and was the highest work of nonfiction in the 1990s, spending 121 weeks on the bestseller list. And I actually had this book. Did you have it, Val?
I didn't get it.
You didn't get it? It was a really interesting book. And I read it from cover to cover. Did it help me? I'm not sure it did. But I think what he talks about is that, in a relationship, there's give and takes. And if the balance shifts, one person starts to feel that they're giving more than they're actually receiving. That's where resentment comes in. So, I do this, I don't feel you do this, or you don't do that, and I don't feel this. And that's where resentment comes in. And that's the time when communication comes in to help bring in the relationship back into balance. we also, I think men and women, we give love differently. We give and we receive love differently.
Right.
And I know Scotty brought up the point once when we did the show that, you know, men and women both know that we come from very different ways of thinking. And I think men are very visual and very practical in a lot of ways. And women, we're very emotional, and we speak from an emotional point of view.
Right.
The problem comes, as you say, when there is a communication problems. And now we come up with two other wonderful words, gaslighting and ghosting, which when we were younger, which wasn't that long ago.
Watch it, Lindy.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't too long ago. Those words never came up. Gaslighting, what was that? Ghosting?
They just provoked and ignored.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't really words for it, you know?
But I think what we've learned now is the damage that can come from gaslighting and ghosting someone. Ignoring someone is never a positive, unless there's violence or abuse or toxic. Ignoring someone is never a good idea. Neither is gaslighting them, which to confirm what gaslighting is actually denying someone else's perception of what is going on. So for instance, you say to me, I say to you, but I think this, and you go, no, that's not true whatsoever. That's not what's going on. You've got it all wrong. You've confused yourself. You know, why are you getting yourself into a state about it? So they're not actually acknowledging what's important for you, how you're really feeling. And now these terms are very, very used everywhere. For you, Val, did you find in your life that one of the biggest problems in your relationships was communication?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because it was kind of like my input was not needed or wanted. I got hair on my lip.
That's annoying.
Sorry. It was like, you can't get there from here. In other words, you know, no matter what way I suggested, it couldn't be done that way. It had to be done their way.
And that's not positive for anyone. Sandra brings up, definitely in her marriage, there was no communication. Spirit says love is healing in some ways. But and men struggle to communicate deeply. But coming from the generations that we did, Generation X, fabulous generation, by the way. I don't know about you, but it was like men were not allowed to discuss their emotions. It wasn't encouraged by, I would say, perhaps the generation we came from, to talk about their emotions and to say things like, this is how I'm feeling, or to show, you know, and if they did show emotion, it was like, what are you doing that for? Pull yourself together. And yet women, one thing, you know, if you think of the olden days where the wise women would be around the coven, or the wise women would get together, we'd all sit and communicate and talk about our problems. And men were the hunters, they were the gatherers, you know, they were the, you know, the predators. They used to bring everything in. They had a very different role, and now we expect them to be good at everything else. And now you're right there, honey. Do you need a drink? You're right.
I'm gonna tickle my throat.
Just have a drink. Have a drink. You know, that's the thing. We know the two roles have changed very much from then till now. And I want to bring up one of these differences here. The saying men are from Mars and women are from Venus correctly denotes that males and females are different. Men and women are from the same planets, but let me just bring this up here. But often communication between the sexes displays otherwise. Communication is a process of sharing information between two people or people through a common system of symbols, signs of behavior. Now, unfortunately, we all come from very different, attitudes, backgrounds. And if you were brought up in a background where you didn't express your feelings, you didn't express your emotions, and, Freud often talks about the first relationships that a man and a woman have is with their parents, and everyone's well knows that Freud talks about the first man that a woman falls in love with is her father, and the first woman that a man falls in love with is his mother. Based on those relationships is also how you can grow up and how your future is. I don't know about you, but I had a pretty tough relationship with, with my father, and I found it very, very difficult to talk to him and tell him how I felt. Did you have a good relationship with your dad?
I did. I mean, me and Dad were extremely close. I was the only child, so. I was, I was one of those kids that wanted to be with him everywhere he went. Mm-hmm. If he went to the farm, I wanted to go with him. He taught me, so many things. We would stay together when he got home from school, or when I got home from school and he got home from work. We did things together and all that, which I was like that with my mom too. So, I had a very close relationship with my dad. And my first husband, he was a good old boy, just like Dad. I mean, he was, I think we tend to gravitate towards men who are like our father.
Well, so, certainly in my case, I picked some wrong uns, that's for sure.
Amen, sister. Tell me about it.
It was like I always thought, please do not let me ever marry my dad in character and behavior. And thankfully I didn't. I'm not sure if I married, but I definitely dated. Him. And I think also as well, we find it very frustrating. I don't know about you, but I find it one of the most frustrating things not to get my point across, not to be able, like, I know what I want to say, and I sometimes go over it and over it and over it and analyze it. And what am I going to say? How am I going to say it? And when I actually go to say it, it's like, it didn't even come out like that.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, once you say something, you can't take it back. It's out there. And sometimes you do have to open up and you do have to say things. I think with guys, and certainly with some of the guys that hopefully will come on and we can ask, that they've been brought up as well with perhaps a different persona. With your girls, did you encourage them to talk to, because we talk about talking to each other and talking about our problems and expressing our problems to each other. Did you help them with how to talk to guys?
I think a lot of it's hard to describe, but their dad was not, I guess, the best role model for what a guy should be like.
Yeah.
So they tend to be very, very skeptical with everybody.
Yeah.
I think because of that. If they had questions, of course, they've always came to me. They've always, anything they want to ask. I've never really lied to them about anything.
Mm.
So, I kind of waited for them to come to me and ask. But I think the trauma that went on with their dad has helped a lot and maybe hurt a lot too.
Yeah.
because they're the way they view men. You know, it's almost like, even if they like them or love them, if they do something wrong, that's it. You know, I'm automatically not putting up with anything.
And that can be a situation, as you say, they've learned, and so when they meet a guy who reminds them of their dad or a similar situation, the wall goes up straight away, and they go, I don't want this. And you know, I think that's a very good point, because in the book Men Are From Mars, etc., John Gray writes about how the female and men, how we deal with stressful situations very, very differently. Men tend to withdraw temporarily. They retreat into their man cave, or they retreat, or they go quiet, or they shut you out. And they do this, like, you know, they go into the car, or they do something, or they do something to themselves. They go into their caves.
Yeah.
Because they need that time out to distance themselves from the problem and relax, and then look at it from a different perspective. And it's quite a sensible thing to do, rather than just going in and throwing yourself in. You are actually taking time out to go, okay, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to perhaps take some time.
Well, you know, I get that, I think, from my dad, because I'm very much like that. I leave or completely shut down, you know, remove myself until I'm able to not be, you know, screaming and crying and yell, you know what I mean? I try to remove myself so I can have that time to calm down and think about things before I say something and regret it.
And that also, I think, comes with age, doesn't it, as well?
Because absolutely,
as you get older. But one thing, why is it, like, I know over the years that I've had relationships where I'm like, they're not talking to me, they're avoiding my messages, they won't take my calls, it's like I don't exist anymore. And then you always think the worst, you always go to the worst possible,
of course,
explanation. Oh, you know, this is going to happen. But actually, it's a very, you know, when you start looking at the whole man cave business, a guy retreats, he goes into his cage, shuts the world out, and goes, no, well, I'm ready to deal with this. Not all men, predominantly. Where women, on the other hand, completely different, because women find that hard to understand when the guy goes into his cave, into his man cave. We're like, why do you want to talk to us? Why can't we have this conversation? I need to talk to you about it. I need to sort this out. And women have a natural reaction to actually talk to someone, even if it doesn't provide a solution. Women like, I'll ring you up, Val, we'll have a chat. I'll ring someone else, you know, or they'll ring me and we'll have a chat. That's what I'm saying. There is this thing from our background, from our DNA, from our generations. The women came together to come together with a problem, as, you know, you want to do this, you want to try this, blah, 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 blah. Where men were kind of like, we just don't go there. We just go off, we do our own thing. And straight away, what happens is, if you got someone that wants to take that time out and have that time for themselves, and they've got someone on them and on them and on them, but talk to me, tell me what's going on, I need to hear you, just tell me this, tell me that, that just pushes them further and further away. And
it makes it come to a boiling point. When I was younger, I wasn't the way I am now. Now I'm the one, just don't talk to me right now, you know. And I've had, you know, I've dated people that are like, yes, we're talking about this right now, no, you're not leaving. And it all comes to, you know, an explosion. And then you end up saying things you don't mean, you know, getting not necessarily physical as in really bad, but it, you try to leave, they try to keep you there. And it's just a bad situation all the way around. When if I could just walk away a while, I'd be okay.
Because everybody needs space.
Yeah.
And that's why I put in one of the things, do women shut men out? Yes, we do. We do shut men out.
Yeah.
We don't always do it to be nasty. Sometimes we too need that space and we go quiet and we need to process things.
Yeah.
Yes, we do shut them out. And can men open up to women? Yes, they can. But sometimes they have opened up to women and they've been belittled, or they've had, people put them down for it.
Yeah.
Or, I don't understand what you're saying. What's your point?
Well, I think a lot of times women want men to open up and just talk, not necessarily wanting to fix it.
Yeah.
But just to let them release that built up, energy.
Mm-hmm.
When a woman tells a man something, she's not asking him to fix it.
No.
She's just wanting him to listen to her.
That's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes you just want to put your feelings over. You're not asking it for it to be cured. You're not asking for it to be sorted. It's like, I just need you to hear me.
I mean, I've gotten a response of, well, what do you want me to do about it? Well, I'm not asking you to do anything about it.
Exactly.
Just listen to me.
And I wonder if they actually, because that was another point I brought up, do we actually hear what people are saying? Because body language says a lot. It's very important to have when you're talking to someone and they're kind of like,
yeah,
that is a massive sign from someone that they do not want to have that, they don't want to be in that situation.
Right.
And I think if a man retreats, it's natural for a woman to want to get closer to them.
Right.
And that becomes then, and I'm not saying every couple, every man and woman are the same, but a majority are be like, you need to give people time. And the thing is, men and women are also very, very different, because if a woman gives herself to a guy, I'm sure you'll give me a point on this, we don't receive what we give out. And I think that what I mean is in that balance, we don't receive the adequate, as what John Gray writes in his book, that they don't receive adequate love and attention in return, then she becomes unbalanced. And eventually, not unbalanced as in crazy, but where she was like this.
Maybe women are crazy.
Well, bonkers crazy, someone said to me today.
You just proved it right there. Okay, well, we're done. So
we're leaving. Good night. What I mean by that is that I think if you invest in a relationship is like a bank,
right?
You have to invest in it. You have to invest the same amount, because if you don't, then one is giving more and one is taking more. And then what happened is you start to get, well, I do more of this, you do less of this, and you get resentment and communication. Somebody once said to me, tell me the truth, even if I don't want to hear it, just tell me it, because I want to hear the communication.
Right.
And sometimes you do tell them and they don't want to hear it, and you're like, but you told me to tell you. So the other thing as well, like, do you remember when I was young growing up, I remember my parents, I don't ever remember my parents communicating. I don't remember them ever talking to each other in front of me. It was a lot of arguments. There was a lot of silences. There was a lot of banging and crashing at times, but there was never communication. I didn't learn about positive communication until I think I probably was in my 40s, and I trained as a counselor, and I've had to do this, that, and the other. When do you think you learned about that. Like the cup, by the way. Great cup, woman. Wonder where you got that from.
From my gorgeous friend.
Bless you.
You know, one of the memories that I have of being a small child, and it's weird that this is what I remember. I remember either Dad in the kitchen, leaned up against the counter, and Mom standing in front of him, you know, and him pulling her over there and loving on her, or Daddy in the living room and Mom in the bedroom and me going back and forth, you know, trying to make them talk. That's what I remember. I mean, it's weird that that's what I remember, but it is, you know, trying to be a peacemaker. And, you know, trying to make them get along. And then I can, you know, I remember dinners, all of us around the table. Then I also remember arguing and Daddy storming off. And then Mom, of course, beating and banging things around because she's mad. But, you know, it's weird how you remember, you know, certain things. And for me, it's good and bad, the things that I remember. So it's no wonder I'm like really messed up in the head.
I think our pasts, male and female, they do play a part in how we grow up, how we communicate, how we receive. And I know that Jason and Michael, who are waiting outside to come in, but they actually, obviously, they have ADHD as well, which can obviously make things not always easy to communicate with as well. But on a general thing,
right?
Sometimes it's very hard to admit you're wrong. Sometimes it's very hard to talk about certain subjects, and sometimes we can just go, I want to talk about it, but I'm not ready to yet. So we act very, very differently. But in the promo, it talks about, there's a photograph of two children, which I really loved, because it's like, when we're children, we're like sponges. We absorb so much. And as we grow up and we become parents, what do we teach our children? Have they learned from us a negative way of communication, a negative way of being? Did we pass on the traits from our parents that we didn't want to pass on?
Yeah. I mean, I tried everything that I could not stand as a kid. I tried not to do with my girls. Now, I guarantee I did. I guarantee I did some that they didn't like. But yeah, I tried my best not to treat them certain ways that I had been treated, because I knew how bad it made me feel. So, you know, I tried very hard not to do that. And I think I succeeded in some ways and maybe not so much in the other. But our situation really, I think, played a big part in their lives. And I hate that. I hate that they had to go through that.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously I didn't, sadly, because I couldn't have children, but it's like, I remember saying, if I did, I was always going to bring them up. Although my mom was amazing, I was always going to bring them up not to be in that scenario that they did.
Yeah.
And I think also as well, kids hear a lot of things these days from their parents, perhaps far too young. Like, I don't know about you, but when we were growing up, we didn't have the information put in our heads about, you got to do this, you got to talk like this, it's got to be like that, because social media wasn't around. And also we were like out eating mud and on bikes and just doing our thing, right?
Oh, I know.
But nowadays you've got Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok saying this is how it should be. This is how you communicate. If a man doesn't do this, if a woman doesn't do that, you've got all these people telling you different things, and you're like trying to weigh up, right? You know, the memes that you see everywhere you go, there are memes, you know, if your man does this, or if your woman does this, you know, whatever. There's a lot of messages.
But there's not a set of rules that applies to everybody, because we all have our own background and we all have our own set of, I guess, our own set of rules.
Yep.
And not everybody's is the same. So one set of rules is not going to go for everybody.
Yep.
You know, you can't. I may not be able to control a situation that you would be able to control a certain way. I may have to change the way I've done things simply because, you know, of different situations, different emotions.
There's also that saying, isn't it, that actions speak louder than words. And
absolutely.
I think some people speak well with words, and some people speak better with actions.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a time and a place, and sometimes I think there is a time and a place for words too.
Sure.
When I was bringing together this Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, we are very different.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we are very different, but the way we process things, the way we deal with things, women come predominantly, we're not talking everybody, but predominantly, women come from an emotional way of reacting and dealing with things. We come from the you know, women have a sixth sense. Men always talk about women and their sixth sense and their gut feeling, you know, and how they might not have it. And that's, I think I read somewhere or saw somewhere that women have this natural sixth sense. We got that gut feeling. We can't put our finger on it, but we know. And then we'll go to a guy and we'll say, yes, but what about this? And I know this. And they'll be like, where are you getting this information from? You're like, I just feel it, because our gut feeling is telling us something.
I think a lot of one way you can think of it is, I don't know, say one of your kids comes home and they've dented the car. Okay, as a mom, you know, first thing in our mind is, well, is everybody okay? You know, if everybody's okay, we just need to calm down and we'll figure out how to fix it. The man is going to be immediately, well, now I'm going to have to get the car fixed.
Practical.
You know, it's like, you know, it's not to say that they didn't care if everybody's okay. It's just, that's the first thing. You know, we go towards emotional and physical pain and take care of that first, then, you know, worry about the other things.
Like, please don't tell Dad, I've just smashed the car up.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's all right, don't worry, I'll keep it quiet.
But I mean, if you think about it, of course the man, you know, I guess in his mind, if you were not okay, that's what you would have led with. You know, you would have started out saying, broke my arm when I crashed the car.
Yeah.
You know, so, but we think more along the lines of men, you know, emotionally, are you okay? Because even if it's nothing physical, it seems like that's one of the first things we ask people. If we know that they're upset or whatever, are you okay?
Are you okay?
You know,
so
even if it's not physical.
There's a point with ghosting and gaslighting in our relationships now. We ghost people. We can just go, on social media. In the old days, you had a phone, and if someone didn't pick up the phone, then you just didn't get to speak to them. You just had to send them a letter, or you had to go around and knock on the door.
And you didn't know who was calling.
Exactly. We had communication was so different. You know, we had to communicate more. We had to go and do it.
Yeah.
Now we've got Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, or, you know, WhatsApp, you know, FaceTime, all these kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's millions of ways of communicating with someone. So here's a point. If someone doesn't communicate with you, and there's every single way that they can communicate with you and they don't, how does that affect us knowing that there is more than one way to communicate? They're obviously choosing not to.
Right.
That must be very difficult, because it really doesn't affect, even though we understand about the man cave, we're using obviously from a male to female here, but it could be from
Right.
female to male. It affects us mentally. Like, we go into our own head, and then it almost drives us crazy.
Yeah, because we come up with every scenario that could possibly be, you know, I mean, you know, if you're married and he you know, say he's at work or he's on a trip, automatically I think, okay, is he dead in a ditch somewhere?
Yes. Yeah.
And then you start thinking, okay, is he out and ignoring me? Is he with somebody else? I mean, every scenario you can literally think of goes through your head. And, you know, and then when you finally get to ask him, they're like, oh, well, I fell asleep early because I was tired. You know, it's nothing.
And we've been thinking the worst. I was talking to a gentleman today, and he was saying to me that he actually was dating someone, and you know, they were dating for a while, and then she disappeared for like 3 weeks. She just disappeared, and he tried to ring her. She didn't take the calls. He tried to, you know, do I call her? Is that what I do? Do I call her?
Right.
And then after 3 weeks, she just turned up and went, hey, how are you? I've missed you. And he's like, but
right.
But where have you been for 3 weeks? I've tried to call you. I've tried to, you know, there is this thing now that people just disappear. They just disappear. It's not just about going in the man cave or going off with the girls. It's like people just seem to stop the communication. And the next thing you know, you're like, hi, I'm back. And where have you been?
Yeah. Now, I had an ex, and he would just decide one day he wasn't going to talk to anybody. Wouldn't answer the phone, wouldn't answer the door, wouldn't answer a text, wouldn't answer anything. And it might be a week. And then he would just, hey. And I'm like, where the hell have you been for like a week? Nowhere. And I'm like,
yeah.
You know, you could have let somebody know.
I know a few people at the moment going through similar situations, and they're male and female actually. And they're like, why don't they call? Why don't they pick up the phone? Why don't they just send me a message? Because obviously they don't want to. Or perhaps there's another reason for it. I'm going to bring in the two gentlemen that are waiting very patiently, and I can see they've all got pens and papers waiting. So, you know, especially Mr. Jason.
Oh, they getting ready to.
They are going to come in and give us their male version of it, and it's like, we've been listening to you, and we always believe it's fair and wicked women to bring in the men and let them have their say. So I'm going to bring in the lovely Jason, who's sitting there patiently, and the lovely Michael. Hello, boys.
Hello. How are y'all, ladies?
We're doing well. How are you? You've been listening backstage. I'm going to come to each of you boys bit by bit.
Right.
Michael, what have you got to say on what you heard so far?
Like I said, I talked to you the other morning, and we printed off. I actually printed off the 10 ways that men and women communicate differently, and some of it kind of hit pretty quick, and others I was like, and some of it I tried to print out in the printer and wouldn't have it, but it said, but I looked at it, it said women tend to apologize more often, which can signal weakness to a man. And it
Really?
said, yeah, men tend to compliment less often than women, so men don't give compliments like women do. That was just part of it. And let me see. But the one I really liked was this little one, and it printed out like a little bullet point, like 10, and it had pictures, which really kept me interested for a minute. If you don't mind,
Just a minute. Yeah.
yeah, and it says women create and maintain closer relationships through talking. Boys exercise dominance through talking. So, one, the female wants to build and maintain a relationship through talking, and boys, they exercise their dominance through talking. And it says women engage in report talk. They talk to establish connections and negotiate relationships. And it said counterpart, men engage in report talk, and they use talk together and dispel information. I thought, okay, I can see that. In a same-sex group, women share stories featuring people and families. In same-sex group, men shall share stories, often of action and conflict. I thought, okay. And number 5, females confirm feelings and others. They are expressed in a conversation. Males discuss their own problems and downplay those of others in the conversation. Okay. And it says women are comfortable speaking in private. Men are more comfortable speaking in public. Women use to share their thoughts. Men often keep it to themselves because they are not considered worth. Men. Okay, because they're not considered worthy of attention. And number 8, female sit closely and look directly at each other when speaking. Men set it to an angle to each other when speaking. Okay, only 2 more. In a conversation, women have the goal of being liked. In a conversation, men have a goal of being respected.
True.
And the last one, in the same-sex group, female are more likely to acknowledge points made by the other. In a same-sex group, males are more likely to interrupt, heckle, and insult each other, which I thought was weird. And coming from mine and Jason's background, other than the ADHD, coming from the Army, if you had a conversation and didn't call somebody a dirty cocksucker, it wasn't a good day. And and we are more used to being heckled and talked to like men. And a lot of times that's the reason a lot of females have issues going into a male dominant workforce, is because men and women do communicate differently. We cuss each other and basically try to, it's not that we're putting each other down, but that is the environment we brought into. It's that's the reason they call it locker room talk. The way men talk and communicate to each other is a whole lot different than how women do. We want to come out of it being respected by the other guys, and women more or less want to come out of the conversation of being liked. That was the thing that I took out of it.
Jason, what's your point? Because I know you've been sitting there like writing it down. Hello, Steph, by the way.
Hello. Hey, Steph.
Hi,
guys.
Where do I start? No,
Writing it down.
You borrow a
At
piece
the
of paper?
beginning.
chapter 17. No, so, and I made kind of little just notes as I was listening of things that I would talk about. One of the things, yes, we can communicate very differently. I think there is an element of it that is just nature between the genders, but I also think very much so product of environment and experiences, because those things have a huge impact on how we develop responses to things, your fight, flight, or freeze responses, the things that are kind of associated with that kind of reaction, develop very much based off of our experiences and what we're exposed to. So I do agree that there is some differing things between men and women, how we communicate, how we think. I also think, though, that sometimes, and probably more often than people would actually be willing on the whole to give credence to, is that you're just falling for a bunch of crap when it's the men versus women thing, because there are certain things where it is just the human condition. And that goes back to the conditioning, product of environment, all of those things. Couple of quick things is, you were talking earlier, Valerie, about the catastrophizing in terms of thought.
Right.
The downward spiral of worsening scenarios that we all do. Most guys are not going to admit that to you. I will, because quite frankly, I'm just sick of the bullshit that societally we have cooked up. All right, because it doesn't help anybody to not be. Hey, here's the deal. We all go through this, right? But there's this thing, and you may be familiar with it. It's called Occam's razor.
Can't say that I am.
And in Occam's razor, for those who aren't familiar, that the simplest way it's boiled down to is the simplest explanation is usually the most accurate or correct explanation.
I can't remember.
And we all catastrophize to some level. I think that one of the things, though, with men, and like the situation you were talking about that you used as an example, Valerie, with the persons out there, or somebody's in a wreck. We'll go with that one, right? And the difference in response between women to the wreck and whoever was in it, and men, right? The women, hey, are you okay? Are you all right? Etc. Right? And men, the dad, great. Now I got to get the car fixed. Do you know how much that's going to cost? And you have that nurturing thing. It's one of the things, though, is I think you have you look at it and you kind of have a couple of things. You have emotion driven and you have logic driven between men and women. Men can be, and probably more often than not are, or at least outwardly are, very logic driven. Women, as you guys were saying earlier, want to be heard. We want to check on the emotions. We want to do these things. We want to feel listened to. What I think in some of that happens is the fact that, hey, we're listening to you. We're just not listening to you in the way you specifically want to be listened to. And you don't recognize that the other person is listening to me. Why? Because they heard my problem, and now we've got a problem. Okay, hold on, wait. Let me pull some stuff up. We can figure this out. We'll get this resolved, and you know what? It's no longer going to be an issue for you.
But we don't want you to fix everything.
And that's a problem.
We're not no, it's not.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
It's only
a
a problem for you.
No, it's not a problem for me. It's a problem on y'all's part, because and here's why I say that. I say that because that is men solving things, men fixing things, men working through problems, because we are so logic driven, right? And because men are very good at compartmentalization to get through a task, right? To get through a hard situation, to get through whatever we can box it away.
I understand that.
By allowing us to address those issues, okay? By not allowing us to address the issues, you're creating an environment. And when I say you, I'm not specifically saying you, Valerie, I'm talking in the general sense. You create an environment where we can't do what we do best.
But that's the thing.
So you set us up for failure.
That's the thing. We want you to listen to us. Just listen. We can fix our own problems most of the time. We don't need you to fix.
Then preface
we just
it with
need
that.
you to listen.
Then preface it with, you know what? I just want to vent. All right, vent it out. Sorry, that was my echo dots.
I just want to welcome Steph to the show because it's the first time you've been on, Steph, as in on screen. Welcome, my love.
So I'm trying. My camera's wobbling. Can you guys actually hear me?
I can
Yes.
hear you, and
Bye,
we
bye,
can-
bye.
Wow.
But-
What is your take, Steph?
My take is I think that they listen to us, but they're not responding to us, making it that they understand where we're coming from. We want you to understand. We want to make sure that you're understanding us.
So here's a question on that. And again, logic driven, right? So forgive me my failings. If there is an issue and it's a resolvable issue, there is a solution that can be found. I can't get this done, whatever, because I can't get around this particular issue, or I can't figure out how to go through this process or find a process to get through this. So I stop being stressed out about this, right? If you, I'm sorry, I vapor locked on you.
Oh my God.
My brain's going in about 12 different
It's-
directions because I've got a mood
there's a
coming up.
difference between us coming to you
Oh.
for help and us just having an internal
Right. So yeah,
dilemma and just asking to vent to someone. There's a
Right.
difference.
there is a difference, and approach is key, which goes back to communication, and
Yep.
it's something that applies to all genders. It doesn't matter if you're a man, if you're a woman, if you identify as a log, I don't care. That's a human condition problem, right? And excuse my bluntness on things because I tend to be blunt sometimes. But if you come to us with an issue that can be resolved, right? And we are capable of figuring that out because that's in our wheelhouse, right? Whatever the issue is, okay, happens to be in our wheelhouse, a subject that we happen to be subject matter experts in, or we have a reasonable amount of experience in, right? If you come to us with that and you are venting about that, and we understand how to make it so you don't have to be stressed by that issue anymore, and you can move on, does being understood really matter? And I don't
Yes.
mean that to be a smart ass. What I'm
Yes,
saying though
it's
is when
still
you're
being understood does matter.
but is it really key to resolving a problem? And that's the thing.
If you go to a counsellor and you go as a couple counselling, the counsellor will say, do you listen to each other? And you'll be like, yeah, we talk all the time, we listen. But do you hear what the other one is saying? The tone of
Right.
voice, how it's coming across, the
Mhm.
body language that's coming with it, and the eye contact, because we all talk, but do we really listen? Because our lives are very busy, and we might come home from work and we're super tired and we've got 1,000 things on our brain and everything. And it's like your girlfriend, your wife, your partner, whatever, is trying to say, look, this is really important to me. You need to hear me. And they will know that they've been heard, because if you actually give your full attention, and that doesn't mean sitting down going, okay, I'm here, drop it on me. It's like, it's actually us feeling that you
Right. Active listening.
that
Right.
you-
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of
And I get that, and you can active listen all you want, but guys are typically going to come to a point of, okay, we've sat there and we've actively listened, we've heard this problem, we've heard this issue, we hate this for you because we hate seeing our partner being in distress, and so guys are typically quote unquote men of action, just to kind of generalize it, but so we've heard this, we understand it, we see how upset you are about something, we know this impacts you. There may not be a lot we can do for you emotionally, but you know what? I can solve this wicket, and that's going to make you stop hurting, because now you're not going to be throwing yourself against this wall and feeling defeated by it every day.
But
or
when
know that you
a
have someone in
hug
the trenches with
and
you.
you saying, I'm sorry that happened to you, is there anything I can help you with? Would
Mhm.
be
And
a giant step.
I would say far more often than not, there's plenty of guys who get that in general. and offer that up. But when we throw out a solution later on and we want to fix the problem,
But
But
you
I
know,
think
get mad at us
if
for not
they say
listening.
no, I'm
Yeah,
okay,
everybody's already
then
mad.
let
an
it go.
expectation.
sometimes
I kind of get. Oh,
go on, Michael. Sorry.
Sorry.
I just wanted to say to you, Jason, very quickly, and welcome, Ken. Welcome very much here. Lovely to see you, honey. Why? Here's a subject for you. Like, men try and fix a problem.
Mhm.
They're natural fixers.
Mhm.
What happens when the man is the problem, and they don't listen, and they don't hear, and then they shut you out? They shut down.
That's
they
and
block
that's a
you out.
different situation entirely than coming to somebody with your problems of the day, right?
But
If you
what
want to talk about that, that's a personal thing. And you know what? Here's the thing is I have dealt with the exact opposite from women.
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah.
Like everybody is guilty. Everybody walk up onto the gallows because you're all getting equally hung.
yeah.
I don't care who you are.
Mhm.
We're all guilty of it. And that's a personal problem with that individual, man or woman, about not being able to recognize, well, you know, hey, I've had all these problems in this relationship, previous relationships and things like that, and failing to see or to at least entertain the concept of the only common denominator in every failed relationship you've had is you.
That's right.
That's a self-awareness kind of thing. And that's something that all people have a problem with, man or woman or whatever.
Yeah, I've said that for years. You know, at the end of the day, when you break everything down, it's from friendship to relationship, situationship, workship. You know, the common denominator with every one of them are you. And I had a therapist tell me at one time. He said, you know, you got to look inward. I'm like, wow,
It's a hard thing to
ain't
hear.
me. It
For the
is.
first
You know,
time.
I also think it's
Wow.
expectations.
Yeah.
Do we have higher expectations for our partners?
Yes.
Like expectations that we've walked into a relationship, friendship, situationship, whatever with, and we're projecting those expectations on those person, and then when they don't meet them, we're disappointed because you're talking about that kind of situation.
I think
Seth?
that's a very
But like what we expect their response to be for us.
Mhm.
Because we may go into it going, oh, you're going to help me out. And all of a sudden it's almost like you're talking to the wall.
Mm.
And it goes for both people, you know, both sides of the party.
Because like I've dealt with a lot of ignoring in my tumultuous relational past, where you get the ignoring thing, and so
But
I
some
know
people aren't ignoring; they just don't know how to answer.
that's
Sometimes
true.
They're afraid.
That's
Am I
true.
going to give the wrong answer?
Right, absolutely. But there's also the ignoring, the
Cold
ghosting,
shoulder.
the cold shoulder, and you know, I could say like my last relationship, that gal wielded that thing like a saber. That was a weapon. That was a belt-fed,
Oh, yeah.
you know, automatic, air-cooled, gas-operated, high rate of fire weapon, and she employed it every time she could, either ignoring or denying even little things. It's yeah, that's one of those things that people do regardless of that. That's a mental thing on their part, and being I don't want to say a crappy human being, but let's say less than scrupulous emotionally.
That one works on both sides too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to ask you and Ken and Michael, and I'll come to all three of you. Ken, are you a good communicator, or do you find that you have issues with it?
What, communication?
Yeah.
I think we all do. We all do ourselves. We all have communication problems.
Yeah.
Michael, did you come up from like using your, when you were young, did you see your parents chat much, or was there not?
Oh, no. No, there wasn't not a lot of PDA, public displays of affection. There was not a lot of that. And I could tell Valerie is right where I'm from when she said, oh, Daddy's trying to love on Mama. You know, hey, if you ever seen Daddy trying to love on Mom, you better go to bed and pretend like you're asleep. But,
Oh, if you heard the radio on,
but
stay in your room.
oh yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Stay in your room. Just ask no questions. Look at the floor.
It's
No,
bedtime.
There's
What?
no need to get up and say, "Hey, I want a drink of water." Yeah, it's bedtime. Say, but
Or if
goddamn it,
you
it's
get
6
up
o'clock.
and start down the
Here, go to
hall
sleep.
and see the mirror at the end of the hall, mom and daddy's door's shut, radio's on, go back to bed.
Yeah.
What do we think of
It don't matter.
ghosting? Because now this is something Michael and I were chatting about yesterday. Was the fact that when we were obviously younger, you didn't have the opportunity to ghost, as in social media, texting and stuff like that. It was all just they didn't answer the phone, they didn't answer the door, the letters unanswered. How do we feel why ghosting has become, and it's a really cruel thing to happen, because people go into their own minds, into their own heads about it.
Yeah.
Why this, why that? What do you feel, Michael?
A lot of unanswered questions about happens. And I've had that. I've been talking to somebody and think everything good. Next thing you know, it's like, cannot reply to message. And you're like, what the fuck? What do you mean I can't reply? What did I do? And that's the first question you ask. What did I do?
Yes.
And it's got so easy now to just pick up the phone and hit a button. Oh, I don't have to deal with that no more. Oh, that's uncomfortable. I don't have to deal with that no more. And when we was younger, same way that you could confront a bully by getting off the bus a couple of stops earlier, there was no keyboard warrior. There was no internet dating. So, like I said before, the world is getting very, very small. Everybody is interlinked. And in the years of internet dating, it is so easy to meet somebody. It's not like going out to the bar or meeting somebody at a family deal where they all take you out to Denny's and you're sitting there eating and the waitress is nice and you say, hey, can I get your number? You had to write her number down on your hand. And now you just basically hold your phone up. It's like, hey, can you put your number in? And if she turns out to be batshit crazy, you just block the number. It's like, nope.
Sometimes that doesn't even work.
No, what is it they say? Oh, he don't answer my phone call. He wants to see me in person.
Yeah.
And then and I'm like, wow. And
I think
but,
Keith
yeah,
was
it's so
point,
easy.
What did I do? And I think that that's the thing about communication and relationships, and also I think we forget that, as I said earlier on, men like to go into their own cave and have that time to process, do their own thing. And women do, but women are communicators. We go to our girls, not all of us, but predominantly a lot of us. We go to our girls. What do you think? What's your opinion? And we talk about it because we've been doing that going back, hundreds and thousands of years.
I also think that different ways to come at it. You need some different. Maybe you're looking at it with tunnel vision, so you want other people's opinions. Well, what would you do in that situation, or how did you handle this situation?
That's very true. Well, speaking on the ghosting part, honestly, we just have a new funky term that's cool that everybody uses for the same kind of behavior that people have literally been doing for thousands of years. They can just do it a little more effectively. Back when I was a kid, if I couldn't figure something out why somebody wasn't, picking up the phone when I was trying to call them, at some point, as a teenager, somebody's dad's going to pick up the phone and be like, hey, you need to leave so-and-so alone. They don't want to talk to you. Got it. Right. Like, because you're not emotionally learning, or you haven't emotionally learned those boundaries and those stop points and things like that. And how to, it's probably not the right terminology, but self-soothe, if you will, in terms of dealing with the catastrophizing thoughts. And you sit there and you just allow it to spiral, like I learned though and it was relatively recently, I'd probably say within the last 12 years or so, is that at some point, you've just got to figure out that, look, If they love me, they love me. If they don't love me, they don't love me. If they're going to stay, they're going to stay. If they're not going to stay, they're going to leave. And at the end of the day, it's just something that you have to accept and you have to understand is going to happen or not going to happen, and take it for what it is and how it, however it comes. And, you don't have to force someone to stay or push. It's one of those things where you have people in relationship. Oh, I need you. I need you. Dude, I don't need you. I want you.
Difference.
Every day I choose you. This isn't some sort of and I get from the flowery, romantic, poetic language, which is wonderful, but from that, the needing, it does sound, there is a sound to it. There is a response emotionally to hearing that. But at the end of the day, dude, I choose you. So be thankful that, I choose to stay here rather than I have some sort of weird biochemical addiction, or I have some sort of, I'm not a whole person and I'm not myself without you. You're a choice. And, just like somebody chooses me and stays with me, I am thankful for that. I think people need to learn how to differentiate consciously and unconsciously the I need you versus the, you know what, man, I wake up every day and I choose you. Just so you know that I make a choice to be here. I would rather I used to say it all the time when I was in, I would rather have 5 guys in the motor pool with me, turning wrenches, putting route clearance vehicles back into operation, and we're getting no sleep, but they want to be there, than 30 Joes who 80% of them didn't want to be there.
But I bring up this comment from Anita because she says that sometimes you do want to talk and you want to feel like they've heard what you're saying. You don't always need them to fix it. You don't need to solve the issue. It's just like, I need to know that you've heard me, or I want to run through it with you. I think that's a very common feeling, the fact that sometimes we talk, but we don't feel we're heard. And I think that when I trained as a therapist years ago, and I learned all those lovely terms that, in therapy to use, as in, but have you really heard them? Like, what are you feeling? Because there's a very powerful exercise they teach us, which is the empty chair. And you put an empty chair in front of you and you imagine the person that you want to talk to or you want to say the things to on that chair, and then you would stand in or sit and whatever you want to do, and you would say all those things you need to say to them. And sometimes we need to do that. Sometimes we actually blurt out things and we think to ourselves, well, at the time it was the right thing to do, but looking back perhaps it wasn't. But I also think as well, what is it in us that what happens if we don't feel we're not heard? As we get frustrated, we get resentful, we feel rejected, we feel like it's not important, and that's when problems come. And that's where John Gray comes up with his book with Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus, that's when resentment comes into problems, when we come from love and relationships from a different way. Men deal with things and come from it in a way.
You just gave me kind of a thought. I think one way you can look at things or examine things, maybe frame it to consider it. Women wanting to be heard, right? Men wanting to be acknowledged, right? So and I'll just, because I'm a fairly open book, and I like the self-abuse, I guess, by putting it out there. But, my previous relationship, this past relationship, for a guy, when nothing he does is recognized, that makes you feel small. That makes you feel unappreciated.
That you didn't feel you didn't get recognized on. I think everybody finds at some point some comfort with their partner,
Mhm.
and then okay, you felt that, and then all of a sudden you now come to expect that. So maybe you go into it looking for that soft comfort zone, and you're not getting it.
Yeah, that's that. I think that's definitely something that you can run into when you've
Yeah.
been with a partner for so long. Like
But it's not even so long. It's just something you get that zone, you know.
Well, yeah, for me in my situation, and again, results may differ, right? I could do so many things in a day, week, month, whatever. But if I didn't do one thing how she wanted it done, everything else that I have done, it's like it never existed. It's like
But
it
I think
never
that's
happened.
where you should have
Oh.
set. You guys should have both set boundaries and said,
How do you set a boundary with how someone processes the worth of what somebody does? Because that comes from inside that an individual. I could set a boundary in so much as saying, all right, look, we're setting a boundary here. If I do a lot of things to help you out, to show that I care, to show that we are members of this team, this squad, whatever you want to refer to it as, this relationship, we are partners. We're not always going to be, pulling our fair share each time, but we are pulling our weight however we can, as much as we can, when we can, and we're in it. And then I get something wrong, and you treat me as though you've forgotten everything else that I've done, or you refuse to look at everything else that I've done. Insert whatever the response appropriate action is, but that's kind of I think that's almost an unrealistic boundary to set in that kind of regard. So,
like there's some painful stuff and anger. I can almost hear the anger.
Oh yeah.
Because it feels like your worth. Now, from a woman's point of view, we should all know our own worth. I'm just speaking from myself. Yeah. We should all know our own worth, but we don't. We don't always know our own worth. We do see the worth. We do. I'm just talking from myself. You guys can all come up with yours, but I do see the worth. But sometimes there is some things in our life that is really super important to us, and we don't feel that it's taken on board, or we talk about it. And the thing is, if a woman keeps coming to you and mentioning the same thing again and again, there's a point to it. The point is that she feels she's not being heard. It's not being sorted out. It's not being finalized. And I think it's the same with you, what you're saying. I would do lots of things, but that one thing that I didn't do was then thrown at me. And it's like, and how does that make you feel, Michael? I'll come to you in a sec, Jason, okay. But as you're talking about it, I can feel the anger from you.
Oh yeah, and I get it. It goes back to what have I done? What have you done for me lately? And it don't matter what have you done lately. And like I said, I've been there too. I get where he's coming from. And like I said, when I hear the anger and frustration, it is anger and frustration because you get frustrated. It's like I've done all of this, and this is the one thing that is a stumbling block. And the running joke is, if I haven't got done what you've asked me to do on the honey-do list, ask me again in 6 months, I'll get around to it. Because men departmentalize everything as a priority. House on fire, get a bucket, put it out. Does the grass need mowing? Oh, I can push it a day. There's a whole list that a man prioritizes in his head every day. I got to eat, shower, feed the animals, do this, and all the other stuff, is it mission critical today? Is it mission critical? And and it comes with age. And I wrote down here, it was I want to know when that book was written, because I remember growing up and they said that
1990.
I remember when that book came out. Mom had a copy of it on her nightstand.
Poor old dad. He's
And
like,
it's
look,
so
you're not doing
familiar.
what the book said. Yeah. And it says, oh, and you're not doing, and and when people write books like that, and
Dad read it,
yeah, I've read
This is
part,
a,
I've
this is a
read
great
out
point that Anita brings up. You can talk the talk, but if you don't walk the walk, so words have no meaning unless you have the actions to back up your statements. And I think
yes and no.
Yeah.
I gotta say yes and no when it comes back to the prioritization, a little bit of the prioritization thing, like Michael was talking about, and also understanding that you're dealing with a separate human being with their own separate issues, with their own separate things going on. Even if you are inside of a family unit, inside of a relationship unit, you're still individuals operating within the same battle space. And the fact of the matter is this, is that, yes, I could say I'm going to do something or I will do something, right? If I've got a lot going on, I'm sorry, but sometimes the cheese slides off the cracker. It's not intentional.
No.
There is a difference, and I think a distinction needs to be understood and made between intentional dismissing of requests and, look, man, there's a million things going on, and if it's slid off my cracker. And people don't like to make that distinction necessarily or readily when it comes to something that is important to them. It doesn't mean that it's not, and I'll just use me as, the ball to kick around the court here, or the punching bag, if you will. But if I say I'm going to do something and I don't do it, are there other things going on? Because you know what? Sometimes other things have to take priority. Why? Because I've got to put food on the table. I've got to make sure the bills are paid. I've got to make sure these things are caught up with. But if I'm hitting marks elsewhere, what does it take, really? In honest retrospect, looking at it, what does it take? How much effort does it actually take? Hey, I know we talked about it, and I know you've got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Please, can you follow up on this, because we got to know by Thursday. Oh God, yeah, no problem. And you go do it. But how often does it turn into, well, he said he was going to do it. Fine, I'll just do it myself. I mean, I know I throw silliness in there and things like that and a little tongue-in-cheekiness to it, but let's be realistic. How often does that sort of thing happen?
It happens a lot more than you think.
Well, no, I know it happens a lot more than I think. That's why what I'm saying is look at it realistically. How often is that the response versus the one of, hey, I know you have a whole tray of stuff that you're taking care of.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times people just default.
But I mean, it happens in work, home.
It does.
Anything you do.
And all you can do is the best you can.
I know everybody would just be a wonderful place if we said, thank you so much for doing all the stuff. What you didn't get done, no worries. We'll get to it.
Right.
Not everybody's like that.
Not everybody is like that.
If one person is and one person isn't, that's just not going to work out.
Well,
that's what the give and take in a relationship is.
Exactly.
Realize that they are not first priority.
Yeah.
Sometimes life has to be the priority.
Here we all get along.
Or here's a great one. Here's a great one that I love, and it comes back to when I note sarcasm when I say I love, but it comes back to communication, because communication is a constant two-way process, right? So, look, I want to help, and I'm just going to vocalize the situation here. Look, I want to help out with with your kid's tuition for school, because that's going to ease up a lot on you. That's going to make things run smoother. There's more we can do with him and take care of him, and it'll make everything run well. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Well, no. You don't need to do that. I don't like, I don't ever want to feel like I owe anybody anything, or if anybody feels obligated. I don't want, like taking, not that it's a handout, but handouts. I don't like asking for that or anything. So no, you don't need to worry about that. No, I would like to do it. So let me know what I need to do to facilitate this. Do you need me to give you cash that you can take care of, and you could, do I need to, can I even go down to the school to pay part of the tuition? Right? Can I do that? You want me to PayPal it to you? What do you want? How do I do this? Well, I really appreciate that. Okay, just let me know what I need to do. Okay. Never lets you know what you need to do. And then you keep saying you're going to help with things, but then you never do it. And it's like, well, I told you to let me know what I need to do because I don't know how all of that works. And let's make it work for you. I told you, let me know what I need to do and I will do it.
Or you need to become a mind reader.
Right. Oh, yeah. Which is, as we all know, a load of horseshit. I'm not clairvoyant.
Go ahead, Michael.
What I was saying about it, if you really want to know how men and women communicate differently, Bear Grylls did a survival show. They put 10 women on one island and 10 men on the other island. And the 10 men was almost like they're on vacation. They kind of prioritize things, you know, they're out there, they're hunting.
We're building a fort.
But pretty much that's what they did. They built a fort, you know, they built this nice fire pit. You know, next thing you know, they're out there catching fish and all this. And the women was over there debating, well, I think I need to do this. These poor ladies was starving to death. And the producers felt bad for them. So they put 2 piglets on the island with them so they could take and catch these pigs and have something to eat, keep from starving to death. They named the fucking things and curled up with them and treated them like puppies. And, you know, and they could not even agree. Everything was a debate, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, and that's when you take the whole dynamic of male and female, you know, out of the relationship. These women could not even congeal as a cohesive unit without a debate. Everything was a debate.
You've got like women warriors, certainly in some of the African tribes and everything like that actually will slit your throat as much as look at you. And,
I'm not saying women's not mean.
That's a cultural thing. That's where you start looking at the nurture of the culture.
But I also think that when it comes to communication, like what do we need to do to communicate positively to someone? What do we need to do? What's going to work? Because we're hearing what the problems are, but what anyone watching this is going, well, I've got this problem right now. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to. Do women shut men out? Do you know, and I just want a yes or no answer
it works
here.
both ways.
Ken, do you feel that in your life women have shut you out emotionally and not communicated? I mean, how does that make you feel?
Sure. Yeah. Well, definitely. Women will have a tendency of shutting guys out, especially if they think you're ignoring them. They will shut you out. And the other ways they can get back to you is cut you off. That's another way of women using
What did I do?
Different things that will cut you off.
Joined the chat.
Am I joined?
Yeah.
You're joined.
Yeah.
Am I here?
You're in the fray, good sir.
Yeah.
Oh, good sir.
Buckle up, bring a helmet.
So
Hey, look at all the faces today.
But what good does it do to cut somebody
Wendy.
off? It just pisses both of you off.
Yeah.
what
Everybody goes to bed frustrated.
JP and
It's called control. It's a form of control. I mean,
Oh,
you know,
apparently I didn't learn how to do that.
It is absolutely a form of control, KB. You're
it's a form of
absolutely
control,
right.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
Both parties do it.
I'm going to bring up a situation here. Like we've all been in situations in our lives where, you know, we feel we're not communicating well. We can't get our words out properly. It's coming out wrong. You know, oh my God, you know, what do you do in that sense? I'm going to ask Scotty, who's just joined us, my podcaster hubby. What do you do to make communication more productive and positive so that we hear each other?
you and me, or just men and women?
General.
Men and women.
What did I ever do to make communication between men and women more productive?
What can you do to make it more
You mean it's different? And I still have a twitch from the last time I said that. What have I done? Usually when you're in the midst of not communicating well, you're not cognizant of the fact that you need to be doing something
Mhm.
because you're in the midst of non-communicating. So you're not thinking about it while you're doing it most of the time, might I say. That doesn't mean you don't catch it. I've had times with Rainey. I've had times with other women in my past where you say, "Oh, hold on, we're not communicating. You're not hearing." I say this a lot to Rainey. I say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! We're doing the man-woman thing." I said, "My perception is that I'm perfect and doing just fine. My perception is also that you're kind of off kilter." And that doesn't fly well. So I try to say it with a little bit of humor sometimes. Sometimes you're angry and you just go, "Look, we're just not fucking communicating. We gotta step back. Let's clear this up so we don't miscommunicate." And sometimes, now I have not seen the whole show here. I'm sorry, I was out quite late last night and had a few too many. I did my show this morning. When my alarm went off and woke me up, and it told me, "You were up far too late I think I went to sleep at 4 a.m. and then I got up at 8. But which is not so irregular, but
Scotty, you're very good with communication. Like, you watch the show. You and
I think I am.
You're very good at communicating. What do you find frustrating when
not listening? Is the most frustrating part.
How do you know you're not being listened to? Give me some signs that you know that you're not being listened to.
It would be, the signs for me are generally when, now this could be the communication flaw on my own end, but I say something and it's like, you might say, okay, I'm gonna make up off the top of my head a weird example. It's not a perfect example, it's a weird one. "Hey, honey, I mowed the grass today." And she'll say, "Oh, I hate it when you shave yourself like that. But I wish you hadn't done that. You're not getting sex for 6 months now." And you're like, well, I meant the grass, the lawn. What are you talking about? "You know what I'm talking about," she might retort. "Your nether region." And I'm like, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about the grass, the lawn. And she go, "Oh, I'll bet you weren't." "Oh, you don't lie to me like that." I go, "I'm not lying." So now that is a mini made up off the top of my head and probably talking about shaving one's pubic region for shock value. But the reason I do that, it's a great illustration. It's a great way to communicate. You find an extreme, but now the problem there is misunderstanding because you're speaking two different languages, or you're using words that can cross over into two different topics, and one person takes it one way and the other way. And then trying to clear that concept up. What frustrates me more is not so much running into those types of miscommunications, because you can generally say, "Oh, you misunderstood what I was saying," but then you're already pointing out to the other person that they did something wrong, that they misunderstood you. And sometimes they don't want to hear that. And so 9 months down the road, not for any specific reason, 9 months, but 9 months down the road, you might have another argument. You go, "Yeah, well, remember that time where you shaved off your pubic hair and didn't tell me you were going to do it ahead of time?" I'm like, "No, I don't remember that. What are you talking? You talked about mowing the grass." And I go, "Well, wait, didn't we clear that up 9 months ago?" And and the misconception continues, and it might continue 14 years down the road.
And do you feel that you get the gaslighting and the ghosting as well that comes in with that communication?
Gaslighting's really easy to do to somebody if you're the kind of person that gaslights. In order to, the reason it seems I see people do that is so they don't have to admit they did something wrong, or they don't have to admit they were incorrect, or they're too embarrassed to admit that they were incorrect, or too prideful to admit that they were incorrect. And they have to win the day as opposed to go, "You know what? you know what? If I was in love with you, I should say, you know what? I screwed that up. I was wrong. Let's backtrack. And yeah, you're right. I did this way. I did that, and so on. That's what people do, I think, when they care about each other and care about not having conflict. People who gaslight, people who work to me, gaslighting, there's a lot of insidious reasons for it to be done. But I think one of the worst, lamest reasons, which is the most common, is that nobody wants to fess up that they're not communicating very well.
Yes,
and so they gaslight the other person
with
and 13 years ago you said no. And there's a part of me that when that happens, and it's happened to me before, hey, a few years ago you said, my response might be, now wait, are you deliberately ignoring the fact that we cleared that up from a technical point of view? You might have had a feeling that I did something different, but the feeling can be totally invalidated. Excuse me. Yes. Feelings don't always have to be acknowledged. You have to acknowledge that somebody has a feeling, but you don't have to acknowledge that their feeling is correct. He's like, I might feel one thing and be absolutely wrong about the way I'm feeling. And you can go, well, like I would say, there's things that, yeah, you might feel that I did that, but that doesn't mean I did. So technically, on a technical level, we cleared that up. But your feeling that you want to hold on to has helped you to retain that the way you saw it. And you did not appropriate the technical correction. So now that all sounds very Spock and McCoy, to people out there, those who get that reference. The very logical versus the illogical. And most human emotions don't abide by logic.
I'm going to ask the ladies here, sorry to just come in there. What is the most important thing that you get frustrated about from a guy? And I'm going to come to you, Steph, first. What is it you find so frustrating that with men in communication and not feeling heard? What is the one thing that it makes you feel like?
I'm thinking that they just can't get on the same page as you because they can't see it your way. Kind of get out of your own head and maybe look at it from a different perspective. That not everybody, like I think about, you don't take things the way that I do. You don't see things, you don't love, and you don't feel the way that I do. But maybe step back and go, oh, okay, well, I can kind of see your point. I think that's one of my main issues. If you know your partner, you should know what makes them kind of tick.
Yeah. Go ahead, Val.
Actually, I think that's pretty much what I was going to say. It's, if you try to talk to someone or your significant other and you say something and they think that you're speaking of one thing when you're not, and you can't make them understand that's not what you're talking about, they take that and run with it and don't stop to think, okay, well, maybe that's not what she's talking about. I think a lot of my experience has come from men trying to mansplain things.
No, let me tell you what that really means, Val. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That I already know about, but it's like they dumb things down. Like it's like they feel the need to dumb things down for me to understand when it's not what I was asking to begin with. or it has nothing to do with what we were talking about.
Or they
You know,
come in and
I don't need people. I don't need them to explain things. I already know.
they don't have the compassion that I think a lot of women have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand what you're saying, but this is how it is, and this is how it should be, and this is how it's gonna be.
And I think a lot of men think that we're going, you don't do this, you don't do that, it's all your fault, blah, 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 blah. And sometimes we're actually not saying that at all. What we're actually saying is, look, this is important to me, or this is hurting me, or this is really important. You know, please let me see that you've heard what I'm saying to you. Let me see what you know, and show me, because as Scotty and I have had this conversation many, many times over the years. You know, is no
And
point.
we've rarely misconceived each other.
Yeah, you don't talk the talk. You got to walk the walk. You know, words are cheap. I've heard you. Of course, I'm going to. What do you want about? You know, it's like cut the bullshit out and get to the point. If a woman keeps coming to you, and I keep saying this to guys, and Michael will know that because he and I have had these discussions as well. If a woman keeps coming to you and keeps saying, this is an issue, this is a problem, this isn't changing, you know you're not hearing her, and it's not being dealt with. It's not a problem. You need to
So how much of that is him not hearing, and you, again, general, not specifically you, Wendy.
Not you, Wendy.
Okay.
You, Wendy.
I'm not pointing fingers at individuals.
Literally are.
No, I'm not.
No, we're not.
People would know because we have had these discussions as well.
No, but the thing is, though, is how much of that falls back on the other person who is making the complaint, having actually effectively communicated their point. And I say that because how often in conversations with anyone where you're like, hey, so information. Oh yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Information. No. Information. No. You're not hearing me, right? You have a disconnect because of the verbiage being used.
But when you lay it out, if you love me, I will know you love me without you having to tell me that.
And but here's if you lay it out,
you don't need mansplained.
We need to stop using that term, but that's a different topic.
To disallow mansplaining is to disallow a man the way he is wired to act,
to talk or
and
act.
There's a place for mansplaining. Believe me, there's a place for it.
There's a place for it, and but the other thing too is you want to say dumb things down. Walking into a conversation with you, Valerie, I do not know on any sort of practical level what your knowledge is of, say, Bernoulli's principle and the Venturi effect and the operation of different galleries and galleys with inside of a carburetor, which allow fuel to be distributed into the airstream and subsequently distributed out to all of the combustion chambers in a properly metered fashion to allow for the process of internal combustion to occur.
Yeah,
right?
But you would if I ask you a question about it.
But here's the thing is if you ask a question, right? What's a carburetor? Or like, what's this thing? All right, and I come in and it's like,
if I ask you a question, you can assume I need an answer for that.
Right, but
and you can just say, "Do you know about this?"
You also have
totally different than saying, "You tell me all the time that you love me and care for me, but you do not show it."
Right, or
that's a totally different thing.
That's a totally different thing. But when you say mansplaining, 9 times out of 10, mansplaining comes to things like that, where there's something that's overly technical. Why do you got to explain all this stuff?
On that question, Val, that specific question.
He's mansplaining.
I've run into that before, and my response will generally be, "Well, what would you like to see from me?" If they say, "I don't want to hear that you love me. I want you to show me," and I might say, "Well, hey, honey, I wash my hands and I set my thing down. I go, what would you like to see from me?" And then you get an answer like this back, usually. Haven't you been listening to me? Don't you know me by now?
But
Why
not
do I have
everybody's
to
like
spell it
that.
out for you? Don't
I mean,
that's
you
not
know?
everybody
If
is
you
like
loved
that.
me, I would be a study of yours, and
It
you
does
would know
sound
every
like
angle about me already, and you wouldn't even have to ask me what you needed to
But
do.
that's what we were talking about earlier. There's not one set of rules for everybody because everybody's different.
Right.
What I did
There's
notice,
not.
which I'm going to say, both you gentlemen, lovely gentlemen that join us, and we're very grateful for your input, is there's a lot of, how can I say this, underlining anger or maybe resentment that you are not heard yourself and you're not respected
There's a little
yourself.
bit of that.
And the fact that your input into the relationships, whatever they are, can be disrespected. And the fact is, like, that's actually a very different point. What we're actually saying is, and I'll just bring Mike on here because his microphone went off, is the fact that what we're trying to say is when we communicate, we don't listen. We really don't always listen to each other. We hear the words, but we don't listen. We're so busy with our own feelings and our own emotions and our own sometimes feelings of inadequacy or defense. Now, defense is a massive feeling that will just come up and go, well, you're accusing me of doing this, or you're accusing. No, I'm actually not accusing you of doing anything. What I'm trying to say is I'm just trying to tell you how I feel. I'm not accusing you. And I think that we have to start looking at ourselves and go, what am I actually doing that is not that is not productive, not positive? And both of us, I'm not just talking men and women, I'm talking about all of us. What I have sent messages to people. I have tried to communicate with people in my years of life. I don't always do it successfully. Sometimes I don't, but I try to be not horrible about it. You know, I won't curse someone off. You don't do this, you do that. But sometimes it's taken defensively. And the next thing you know, you've got them shutting you out, cutting you off because they've taken it another way. And that's not how it's meant. So I do think sometimes where we communicate, the words that we use, how we come across. Yes. And there are some people that are so bloody minded, so defensive, so protective, and Scotty will know where I'm coming from with this. They won't let you in no matter what you try and say, no matter how you try to explain it to them. They're like, no, that's the way it is. And
or they come out with, are you listening to yourself?
Yeah. Michael, go ahead.
With that, I heard Valerie said something, and I had a conversation one time, and you know, and when you come out with, if you love me, you'll do it. That is an ultimatum, and an ultimatum should never be
ultimatums like that.
You know, and it should, you know, and it could be anything from, if you love me, you'll take the trash.
I don't think you should ever tell anybody, if you love me, you'll do this or that. But
so real quick, if I can, because I see this popped up on the screen. Okay, and I feel the need to address it since it clearly.
I'm glad you're addressing that.
So Anita, here's the thing. I used that specifically as an example because it's something that I know about. It is something that I do, used to do daily in my everyday life, both on the job and off the job and things like that. So I just went to a topic that I knew about, right? And use that as an example of walking into a situation with, and truly anybody, whether it's man or woman.
Carburetor with flip jabber.
Right, a flux capacitor.
There you go.
Right. It is literally something that I did for years that I know, and I just latched onto that as an area of subject expertise to use as an example. It's not an assumption of you not being a wallflower or people being wallflowers or people not being. Trust me, I had women in my motor pool and they were crackerjack mechanics. I had women in my motor pool that I would trust in the gun turret on a 240 Bravo or a Ma Deuce out on a convoy before anybody else that wasn't a woman. All right. It is gender irrelevant.
As you're coming out with that, and that's a good point. But the point is also, like, we feel that sometimes you don't listen to us, you don't take it on board, as you guys feel,
and your guys aren't listening to us. Clearly, none of you have been listening to me for the last hour.
So how can
Well, you
we?
made my brain.
Trust
melt at
me,
one
I've
point.
been listening, Jake.
If you've been listening,
Yeah,
you would have no more questions.
what we're trying to say is,
Yeah.
how can you get your point across in a more productive, positive way so that people can go away from this show tonight and go, I'm going to try that. As ask the women first, what would we need from a guy? And then we're going to come to you guys that you need, Val, from a guy that would help you be productive in your communication.
Drugs.
See, I was actually just going to say,
Drugs.
how about you just,
No.
live together, do your own thing, don't ask each other anything, say as you walk past each other, and figure it out
style. Okay.
yourself.
Okay, live like a caveman. Is that what you want?
That's
Somebody?
coming from frustration.
It is.
Frustration because we're trying to get a point here of how you can get productive and positive communication, because there are people who asked us to do this show tonight who are struggling to have this communication with people, to try, how do I get my point across? How do I get this?
I can guarantee you,
Scotty.
every man in this room can go, I've already answered. I can answer that again for you if you need.
Well, let me tell you,
that's the way we think.
Actually,
So-
that's not right.
Actually,
No, I hate
Hold on,
that.
she's gonna
I hate
mansplain it
that.
to you. Hang
Well,
on.
actually, I can't.
Is there woman explain too? Is that a thing?
No,
Everybody
that's
talks about
how
man
it's
explaining.
done. The man is like y'all's way.
Oh, no. Is there a certain thing? It's woman's.
okay.
I
Well, the woman
said
tries to
woman's
correct that.
splaining is actually how it's done.
There's an old,
Mansplaining is telling you the way they do it.
there's an old joke I
everybody
heard.
is entitled to their own or wrong opinion,
Right.
and
I'm joking.
I heard an old.
I
I'm
know, so am I.
joking. But what I'm saying is, I think what we're asking for is simple, and I'm not saying all men, but a lot of men try to complicate it. If for me, if I say, I want to know that my partner loves me without him having to tell me, that could be as simple as smacking me on the ass when he walks past me. I mean, because
Your love language.
That's easy.
you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? It could be little tiny things. Doesn't have to be, buy me a new car.
so
It doesn't have to be
And sometimes we
anything.
do that by rote, though.
Wait, guys, I want to get the point across.
It doesn't have to be this big, massive thing. If you just show them you want them,
Mhm.
and I mean, on your way home from work, if you see a flower, stop, pick it, take it to her. It's not going to be that big a deal for you, but it's going to mean a lot to them because you thought of them.
But from a communicative point of view, what would you feel, Val, would be something that would help you know that they've heard you?
For them to actually do the actions.
So actually talk the talk and walk the walk.
What if they
Exactly.
disagree?
And if they are
a good one,
if
Scotty.
they misunderstood anything, or I mean, is that what you're talking about? Is that what you mean by showing you?
There's an old joke I heard a long time ago. I mean, I was a kid, and there's an old couple and they're driving in the car together, and they're in an older car that has a bench seat in it, not the bucket seats like everything now. And so it's one big seat. And they started off, he'd be driving the car and his arm is around his wife. And eventually, over the years, she moves over and she's over by her window on that side. And he's driving and she says, honey, we started out with this car. We used to sit together all the time. And now we're miles apart. I'm over here by the window. You're over by yours. Why do you think that is? And the man responded and said, well, I haven't changed spots at all. So Now, there's
Yeah.
an understanding there that men are perhaps overly simplistic, even in their logic, that they are simple enough to say, and now I disagree with this, but I once heard, a man say, I told my wife on our wedding day 28 years ago that I loved her and that if it ever changed, I'd let her know. Now, I disagree with that kind of living. I like to show my wife every day. Even last night, it is such a habit with me. I was last night with old friends that I've known for 25 and 30 years. Some of them I haven't seen for a few years. I love these people. And one of the women who was somebody that I had some romantic involvement with 30 years ago, 25 years ago, but we're all happily married and all that, but gave her a hug and automatically my hand went down and rested on her ass. And I went, immediately I was horrified. I went, I am sorry. I said, it's a habit. And she looks at me, she goes, Scotty. And I go, I'm sorry. She goes, it's okay. I get it. But the thing is, it's for me, that kind of display of affection is what I do.
Yeah.
I do that with Rainey all the time. I can walk by her, totally different things we're doing. We're not even communicating about anything. I walk by her because she happens to be bending over, grabbing laundry, and I'm running trash out to the trash. And as I walk by, a finger running across the back of her ass as
So,
we go
like,
by.
you understand where Val's coming from. as
Yes,
it
I do.
relates to- So, Steph, let me come to you. What is it you feel that it would help with communication from from your partner?
Well, I think on both parts, both sides, I think everybody has to understand that you don't know what somebody's thinking.
Yeah.
I hate to say it that way. You're not in somebody's head. You don't know what they're thinking. And as a woman, you got to stop expecting your man to understand everything. He should, kind of be on the same level, but you're a woman. Things change, things happen. So both of you have to go in at where he doesn't know what I'm thinking. Instead of he should know what I'm thinking. He should know how this goes.
That's a dangerous slope to play.
And
It is,
it's tough.
It is.
It really is tough because when you're with somebody for so long, you're kind of like, don't you know me by now? No.
There's a level of
you're kinda always
anticipation and
evolving.
understanding that comes with that. Yeah.
Things might
Yeah.
be evolving. Things might change. Things might stay the same. But just kind of listen and kind of right. Is this what you meant by it? Don't just assume because everybody knows what that don't ever assume.
Yeah.
I
If you assume it makes an ass
out
out of you.
and it makes an ass out of me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my
I'm
thing
gonna-
is you can't be in somebody's head no matter how hard you try.
I think that's a really good point. I'm going to come to Michael and just want to say it because we all get in our heads, and in our heads is not a good place to be because that's where the
No.
flying monkeys are.
You got to stop expecting
And
from people.
for
You
me-
just kind of have to go with it, and that's tough. It's so freaking tough.
What would make it more productive for me is if they don't shut you out. They don't go quiet because you cannot get anything from a brick wall. And I realize
Try to spin it on you. I
some
don't
people
like when
need
they
to have their
spin
own
it.
time. I know they need to do it in their own time, but that's when women predominantly more, I would say, go into their head more and go, I wonder what he's thinking. I wonder what's going on. Why hasn't he done this? Why hasn't he done that? Why have you done this? And then we become a version of ourselves that we really don't enjoy being.
And then they
Or
say
have-
we're crazy.
Have you all ever heard of the book, The 5 Love Languages?
Yeah.
Has anybody read it?
I read it,
Yes.
took the test, all that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that shows you what your love language is.
And for me, my
Overgeneralized it does.
my
Well, yeah, I
very,
mean-
very generalized.
Well-
and it's fluid. It's very fluid. If you
To a certain degree, it is.
Right, language.
But the number one can go, like mine is sign like affection. And
Right.
that
So,
goes along with,
physical
you know.
touch, physical touch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you,
Yeah,
is that
the
what you
signs
say
of
when you say affection? When you say affection, do you mean physical touch?
Well,
Or
it goes
words of
along with it.
affirmation? Or do you mean
No, not words of affirmation.
well, but that's affection. That's what I'm
No.
saying. So
It's not.
yes.
I said it goes along with a lot of other things,
Mhm.
but physical touch is a big part
Right.
of it.
It's huge.
Yes. But so for
Um,
the 5 love languages, you have physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, and I always stall out on the 5th one.
Quality
Within my
time.
head.
Quality time.
Yes,
Quality time. Quality time. Thank you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
There's
yeah.
gifts
I
also.
just googled it. Yeah.
well, I said
I
that.
just
Gifts,
Googled it.
gifts, acts of service,
Diamonds.
Honey, I'll
words of
answer that for you.
affirmation
Let me
and
Google it.
quality time along with physical touch. So all of those are forms of affection. So when I say affection, that I'm asking, what are you referring to specifically? But see, she drops her head because
you're mansplaining
listening.
again, darling.
yeah. But the thing
He's
is
a man.
I'm not mansplaining. I'm bringing this up and I'm saying, so which is it?
Most of the time, mansplaining is very simple.
They're
It's
all
broke down
affection
to
because
the-
they're
to
all
the
love
core.
languages.
Right. But
I
when
mean, that's
when you said it, when
so
you said
signs
affection,
of affection is like my main one, physical touch.
okay, there we go.
So, well, that's what I said.
Jason, what is your love language? And I don't want an explanation. I just want what they are.
So the
Got
physical touch and physical touch was at the top for a while, and what I've done here is I have taken it multiple times through multiple stages of a relationship and being single, and so I can't pinpoint for you the order of my 5 languages, because what I have discovered is that when you take that, your mental state and what you are not getting, what you are lacking, tends to work its way up in priority, and it can actually displace your top priority or your top language. But physical touch has always made it up there in the top 3, we'll call it.
The top 3. Scotty, do you know what the love language is?
I have not reviewed this for years, but I know that physical touch is for me. Because I'm a very tactile person, I like to get that back.
Mhm.
I could be now. Rainey is a different kind of person than I am. That's not her main need. For me, as a guy, now let's cut the crap and say, because I'm a guy, I like my woman's body, and I'll touch it whenever I can.
So physical touch
it's
is
a physical touch thing, but
because
then when you don't get it back, you're like,
Well, that's what you do. You tend to give what your
what
your love language is. You try to give it to people, and it might not be theirs.
Right.
right.
So
And
you know,
so
you
because
kind of
it's
have to
our
figure
language,
out
though,
what theirs is.
because
order
it's our language. If it's missing for us,
Mhm.
we tend to think there's a problem.
Well, I mean,
So
it's up to the other person to give you your love language
Sure.
and you to give them theirs.
So for me, my love language is words of affirmation
Mhm.
and acts of service. I think
Mhm.
and that comes from that walk the walk, talk the talk, which
Yeah.
I actually didn't know at the time when I actually did the
And
love
see,
language, and I was like, "That's
somebody
why-
whose love language is physical touch might hear you say that and say, Wendy, I just want you to know how I love your intelligence. I love the way you approach life. I love the way you are affirming, and it makes me want to touch you so much. I mean, so this is maybe that's the way you can.
Well, and that's learning to receive other love languages and learning
Yeah,
to
see,
be able to
you tell
receive
her
and
that, and
communicate.
she gives you the physical touch.
Right. Well, yeah, or to
all
help
of
them
those
understand that this is how you communicate this. You can have situations where it's
And-
like, I don't feel like I'm loved. I'm not getting what I need from you. I don't, but in your mind, well, you know, I do things all the time to show them that I do this.
Yeah.
The thing is the radio the receiver is not set to the same,
Frequency.
station that your transmitter is, and so they're not receiving on that frequency, and you don't know it, and you have to learn.
Because most guys will go, what do you mean I don't show you I love you? I did this, and that. I spend my whole life.
Mhm.
Everything I earn goes into you. And this really everything I do, everything I blah, blah, blah. And so even when I go out for me with my friends, it's all done for you because I check with what the schedule is supposed to be. When would you like me back? How long do I have? How much money can I spend? Blah, blah, blah. I said everything to the minutest little detail is always for you, the other person. You are, does that, and you want to say as a guy, does that not prove to you that my everything revolves around you?
But
But do you
their
do it
gas
for
tank's
them,
only
or are
getting
you
half
doing it
full
for
on that,
yourself?
Scotty.
That's right. That's right. That's the problem with that.
Yeah.
Wait, are you doing it for them, or are you actually doing it for yourself so you feel better?
Well, some of it's self-preservation, you know,
There you go. At least you can admit that. I like that.
but,
Got to do
but
what you got to do, right?
many
You don't wanna
times it is
die.
for them. It's for us because we want to make sure, I have said often tongue in cheek, but I mean this. I'm a 63-year-old man, and guess what? I still need permission to go places. It's like, when did I have to grow to a place where I'm not dependent? I saw a comedian say, he says, guys, if you want to lose your independence really quick, he says, get married.
Yeah, I
And,
was never in that position. I never had control about anything. So.
Well-
I'm going to bring Michael in here because he's been very gracious in there. Michael,
And
talk
Steph,
on
I
this.
hope I got anywhere near answering you before.
What's your
we're moving
love
on. I
language?
didn't
You know what
want
your
to
love
blow up
language
your
is?
point.
Michael,
Yeah, I just Googled it here. The look. Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear? All right.
I
Yeah.
can
Yeah. I
hear
just
you, yeah.
Googled it here.
Oh,
and
you had to Google
it's
about
it's
love
probably
language. You must
compliment.
not really feel it.
No, it's
Go ahead,
and-
go ahead,
Why
Michael.
did you have to Google that? Why didn't that come
Here
up?
it is.
You know,
No
and-
response.
You should have just known.
You should have just known.
Yeah. No, with my background, and it's like I said before, men and women communicate different. I come from a home there was not a lot of open communication. That then I went into the army, and it wasn't you was asked, you was told, you'll be up at this
Yeah.
time. This is when you go eat. This is when you go crap. You know what I'm saying? There wasn't
Sarge,
a lot
I
of
don't
hugs.
think
and
you've hit my love language today.
no, the love language was, hey, well, once you get on on your arms and do me push-ups or do sit-ups or flutter kicks.
But I'm asking you. You don't know what your love language is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Probably
Which one
compliments.
is that?
Here.
Yeah, compliments. Yeah, words of affirmation. And
Words of
if somebody tells me, I'm doing a good job, and I'm sitting here, I've listened quietly. 'Cause like I said, I did it, and I love seeing the banner between JP and Valerie. Most of the time, I'm the devil's advocate with her. I'm glad to sit back and let somebody else take the lead on
I
that.
think JP might be getting a lot of pains in the back later on when she gets her
Oh,
dog
yeah,
out.
the voodoo dot. And but I tell all these guys, we talked the other day, and you told me to have the talk with James about the little girl that he works with. Give him the talk. And and one thing that I would tell either one of my sons or even my daughter, which is involved with a woman, women have a Rolodex. It don't matter if you screwed up yesterday or 20 years ago. They can pull that shit back like bam. And it's like, oh, do you remember when you did this? Say, no, honey, I don't remember what I had for breakfast. Men are very, very simple creatures. You feed us.
Look, I don't know about
you.
you. I have a Rolodex too, but it's all about the Roman Empire. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The minute details of what men and women keep into. We can tell you what model gun Clint Eastwood carried in Outlaw Josie Wells.
I'll
We
tell you,
can
my
take you
wife
47 walking
never
full.
really cared to go out and
Yeah.
celebrate the Ides of March with me.
Steph,
Hey, let's go
what,
have some drinks and some fish.
what is your love language, Steph?
I think it's a little bit of everything.
Bit of everything.
Diamonds.
But what ends up being on the top of your 5? Have you taken the
Do you
test?
like physical?
No, I haven't
touch?
taken the
Do you
test.
like what?
Take
Oh,
it. It's
Steph, you
actually
definitely
very
need to
interesting.
read that book.
Yeah.
What would
I
you
wanna
guess,
say-
even if you
The
don't
biggest-
know what the languages are by definition? What would you say is the thing that motivates you most and speaks to you most as what we could call a love language. What would you want to see? What do you need from somebody?
The
Mhm.
touch. I need the touch and just the connection. There's gotta be that connection. And so you bring it up a higher level every single time. That's
I thought she was going to say diamonds. Diamonds are a woman's best friend.
nope.
If you want to communicate,
Nope.
bring her a ring.
Look, you
Bring that ring.
need to power
You can
flush
see how
all that
much I
stuff from
wear.
De Beers, all right?
Yeah.
All right, because we all know 1936, 1937, De Beers started pushing that so they could push worthless jewels and make more money off of people.
I like where you could be standing across a bar and you can make that eye connection with your partner and you
Some
know,
enchanted
you know it's
evening.
on. That's it.
I think it's interesting when I sit back and I watch all you guys. There's some very strong opinions here tonight. And my job is to try and keep you all from killing each other. But there's some very strong opinions, and I am taking Jason and Scotty and Val those because there's a lot of feeling. And I'm talking as the therapist here. I'm not just hearing your words.
We're in trouble.
Okay, keep talking, Doc.
I'm feeling your
Yeah,
energy
yeah.
here, guys.
Is your head nice and comfortable on that leather pillow?
Feeling your energy, and seriously, when you're talking, you're not just talking, your opinions. You're actually talking from the hurt that you've had as well, and the things that have hurt you. And whilst we did this show tonight, it was also to remind people that there are people going through this right now, and we still haven't come up before we end this show with some productive, positive ways to actually communicate with someone. And we went to the girls, and I'm going to end with the guys. From a guy point of view, what would you consider a productive way? I'm going to come with Michael first. What is a productive way of talking to your lady and getting her to talk to you?
I would tell any young couple together, being open and communicating from day one would be key. You go into it, you lay out what your expectations is, and let them lay out their expectations. And if you have to write them down, and just so and I tell young men and young women, remember, you are biologically different. You think differently. Women are nesters. Men build the nest. The woman wants the prettiest nest that she can, and that's like I was telling somebody the other day. There's a reason that red birds are two different colors. The male's bright and red. He pulls all the danger away from the nest, and the female's a darker brown, and it's her job to nurture the little eggs and the little red birds in the nest, and it's his job to go out and to be seen and to be heard. You don't see many pictures of a female red bird because they're not as vibrant of color as a male red bird is. And it's the same thing. You can go from birds to men and women. Men have always been put in a position where their lifespan and it's longer. They do the more dangerous things.
Are you scared to open up to women, Michael? Do you find that men are more frightened to open up to women in case it's thrown back at them, etc.?
The other day when we was doing that, and I was on the phone with Chandler, and you probably heard him say, men, a lot of times when women say, open up, tell me how you really feel. And when a man opens up, this kid, he's young, he's 28 years old. He said, but when a man opens up, he's looked at differently as he's beneath me now. He is weak. So all through history, if a man has carried his feelings on his shirt sleeve, he's been punished for it. The same way, at one time, the word mental health in the Army was a career ender. That was it. If you mentioned anything about mental health, he was done. In the same way, if men open up about their feelings, he goes from this big brawny guy that is meant to stop the wolf at the gate or at the door. Then, a lot of women will look at him then like, oh, he's a beta male. Oh, how's he going to protect me? I just saw him crying.
What do you think about the difference between I'm going to come to all of you with this question. You've heard of the Sigma male and the Alpha male.
Never heard of the Sigma male.
Oh, okay. You might want to Google that. But
how about you mansplain it to me real quick?
No, I don't need to mansplain. You can read. You can find it.
Yeah.
Scotty,
yes.
What would you feel is a productive way of of getting what you want to communicate and for them to listen? What would you think is?
Well, the first thing I like to do, first of all, I like to teach. What happened to Steph? Did we?
She's got to go. Someone's just come to see her.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I hope I didn't. She left right after I said something to her, and I thought, oh, okay. First thing, I like to know things. I want the black and white. I want the facts. I want to know what's what. But when it comes to relationship, there's a lot of that stuff that I want to have a little bit of knowledge of, but I want to throw it out on a practical level. I don't want to operate by the black and white of what this book tells me I need to do. I want to operate because, okay, this is going to sound very fanciful, maybe a bit idyllic, but I've got this weird notion that when you're with somebody and you're together with them because you love them and they love you, that there shouldn't be any mechanics behind it. It drives itself. It is something that, why do you have to have whole libraries worth of books put together to tell men and women how they're supposed to love each other?
Because obviously there's a problem. We're not very.
Obviously there's a problem.
And it's not a perfect
There's money to
world.
be made by writing them. Yeah.
But that's
the only
because-
person that comes out with that is the guy writing the book that's making the money.
But that's because we allow things to get in the way.
Mhm.
Now, what generally it comes down to is a couple of basic rules in marriage. Number one, love each other. Understand what it means to love each other. Number two, don't be an asshole for any reason. And I'm
That should be
serious
number
about
one.
I always said if you're going to be an asshole,
yeah.
be her asshole.
I think it
Maybe-
comes secondarily because if you love each other and you plan to spend your life together, get together, but then don't be an asshole. Number three, always think of the other person first. That doesn't mean you aren't going to have your own things you want to do. And I think that's where much of the conflict between men and women come in is men are like, well, that's kind of what I wanted to go fishing that weekend or whatever it is. That's what I want to do. That's when your communication problems start to happen, is when you do something outside of the number one rule, which is always love each other. And I can still love my wife and have a camping weekend or a hunting weekend with the boys. She can still love me and want to go out and have a weekend or go to Venice with her girlfriends for whatever, Venice, Vegas, whichever.
Well, see, that's one thing.
So-
It doesn't take it. It only takes a little effort to say, "I want to do this weekend. Is that okay with you?"
Right. Doesn't take any effort.
I mean,
to
it
do that.
on both
We've got a
sides.
master calendar upstairs.
You know, both
If
sides.
I want to do something, I got to put it on the calendar. And same with her.
That's what
I don't have to tell her to put anything on the calendar. She does it. It's her thing.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, who's the admin of the calendar?
Yeah, I have to remember to do it. That's all. Because I didn't impose the.
And what would
And
you
you know
like,
what?
What would you like from your
I forget.
partner to communicate with you more
Me?
in a more productive way? Yeah.
What would I want to be
What would you
communicated?
need? What would you like to have from your partner? Because you're saying
Oh.
about what you feel. What would you like coming to you?
I think, and this is where it gets into the minutia of everything, because I would say, I need you to let go of your past.
Yeah.
Good point.
Deal with me here and now in the present. Don't gauge me today by maybe something that I did 10 years ago, or you did 10 years ago, or was done to you 20 years ago. Let's deal with the here and the now. I would say recognize me for who I am. And if I don't meet up to the standards you keep asking for, I want credit for what I do. And it's not, I don't want to be looked at and say, you're obviously deliberately not meeting my standards. Well, if that's the case, then you need to move on.
Yeah.
Because I may never get it. I may never get there. What I want somebody to show me, my wife to show me, or the hypothetical, a woman to show me, is that you look at me and you see me through the prism of loving me and knowing that I love the shit out of you and that I don't want to have anybody else but you. But that doesn't mean we're not going to run into brick walls on things. So we
Sure.
found, but everything has to be governed by whether or not we love each other and care about each other. Not, did I take this course to make sure in this test and this quiz and this, oh, look, I'm an alpha B lion A touching feeling kind of relationship guy. I don't need
I
that.
think the test
So-
is just kind of a broad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. They're all broad tests. And so they're psychological tests.
Sure.
And so I
If you
What
think
I
about
mean-
it, years ago, Scotty, I just want to come back to you with this
Yeah.
point. Years ago, women couldn't actually say their point because years ago, men were the dominant partners and women couldn't get there, weren't allowed. They weren't, they weren't given that option.
that
to
was
even-
Western culture. That wasn't
know,
every culture.
not
That's
every-
not
but
Yeah.
and
predominantly,
That
No.
should be acknowledged because that's not the entire world experience.
but
no,
even
that's the
certainly-
way we did things, and hopefully we've learned something from
I mean,
it.
where do you get the phrase? The phrase behind every great king or emperor is a
Right.
great woman. I guarantee you, it wasn't a woman who sat there and I can't say
Yeah.
anything because it's not my place. I'm just going to sit here
Yes,
and be
but
the
they
good
did
one.
that until they were alone with the king.
you could ask Anne Boleyn that,
You
but
know.
you might say she lost her head for that one.
But there's a,
But you know,
Yeah.
when you say the alone with the king, you're talking about like they didn't say something in front of the king's peers, the king's
Sure.
subjects, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
In
And
open
that in
court.
general,
Yeah.
though, that's like leadership 101.
Well, I think
Anyway, but I mean, like,
in my opinion, I think that's the way it maybe
Should
should still be.
yeah.
You know, if
You
my
don't
wife
criticize your
was the
partner in
queen,
public
the
behind
queen of
closed
the
doors.
land,
I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna
and I
think,
wanted to express something to her, I wouldn't do it in front of her counselors.
yeah, you
No.
don't want, you
Unless
wouldn't
you're
want
pressed
to
into it's a
cut
very
them down
critical.
in front
No,
of
that-
anyone.
I would
You-
wait till we're alone. Hey,
Right.
honey, that thing you said in
That's
front
just
of the Privy
respect.
Council today.
Or maybe not necessarily cut them down, but
What I can tell you
make
is
them feel that way.
I'm watching
you
the
know-
viewing figures go up and up and up. So this program is
Yeah.
bringing a lot of.
Yeah, I know. I
Sorry,
know
Mike.
what Jason's saying. Jason, like I said, we come from very similar backgrounds, and we both have ADHD. They always said that you chastise in private and
Hey,
you
Barbie
praise
D.
in public.
Sure.
And if me and him, because he is a warrant, I was a non-commissioned officer. If he come to me, and then we did have, platoon leaders that was
And this
warrant
is two
officers. If he come to me and
Well,
said,
in the
"Hey,
teams, yeah.
he'd come to me and say, "Hey, I
Who had the
need to
higher
talk to you."
rank? You or Jason? Who had the higher rank?
Well,
Huh?
NCOs are the backbone of the army, so that's all I got to say about that.
No, but you-
But-
Yeah,
But-
warrant officers outrank NCOs. But
Yeah.
typically speaking, the body of your warrant officer population is
It's very small.
drawn from the NCO Corps. So-
and it's very small. But if he would come to me and say, "Hey, our kids are acting up," and I've always heard this say, and I've heard other lower enlisted coming, and you hear them talking, they're like a gaggle of idiots. They're like, "Oh, mommy and daddy's pissed, we're in trouble," and again, quickest, you go walking off, you can see the long faces just kind of dropping because they know that somebody has saw something that is going to be relayed to the other person. And as a platoon leader, he'd come to me and say, "Hey, the kids ain't acting right. Go fuck them up."
For me, it seems to me that
Okay.
one of the
Teach 'em
worst
better.
things,
But a lot of
couples
times,
can
even
do
with
to
that,
each
and I
other-
guess the same.
one of the.
One second. Let's
What-
just finish. What was the point you wanted to finish, Michael? What was the
Yeah.
point you're trying
Oh,
to
I'm
say?
sorry. I thought he was done. It just went blank.
okay.
So I.
Yeah, there was a delay.
pitched in.
Oh, yeah. No. We got ice here, and I'm surprised that the internet's still working because we got ice hanging on the line.
What was
But,
your point you were trying to make?
but
hon?
even with that, I had to learn to reteach myself. Every Joe was not bad. Same way when I was around. Oh no, I kind of lost it. It went, but sometimes you
thing
got
is,
to
like,
realize
if you were
a
going to
lot
give
of women
someone,
can
go on. I know it's the connection. Go on.
Oh, what was that? Yeah, it broke up.
No,
What was that? If I was going to
like,
give people advice on what, honey?
communication, like if you said that you would be like I think your point this early on this evening was the fact that to write things down, which I think is a really good point, to listen, so the fact that where sometimes you just talk and talk and talk, you go, oh shit, I didn't get that point across, oh shit, I didn't mention this, or oh, I forgot to say that. Write it down is a really good positive way to say, look, this is the thing that I've been bothering about, or that's really doing me. That was a very good point, Michael.
And I have learned to write things down, and you've seen the progression of that, and school has really helped me with that. The medication has helped with that. And but I tell them, I would tell young women that's coming into a relationship, leave your past in the past. This man should not have to pay the penance for something some other asshole did.
So should a man leave it.
I'm getting to him too. And and Scotty said, don't be an asshole. And I've always told my sons and other young men that has come to work for me, damn it, if you're going to be an asshole, be her asshole. Everything of the morning you get up to do, you should always protect her. You should, if somebody's going to be looking mean at somebody, it better be you, not her. You're there to catch the flack. And like I said, over the years, men have had that role. And it's kind of, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this because I've already been accused that I don't support strong, independent women. But, when you start asking for equality and stuff like that, the gender roles change, and it takes the man out of the role that he is familiar with, is being the breadwinner, being the protector, building the nest. I always said the man builds the nest and the woman decorates it. And way this society has came, all these roles are getting meshed, and there's a lot of confusion. But I would still tell my boys, if you see somebody hitting a woman, you better beat their ass. Chivalry is not dead when it comes out of my lineage. And if they don't get them, I'll get, if they don't take care of it, I'll take care of them when they get home.
It's just a point I wanted to bring up there. That you say that leave your past behind. Both you and Scotty talked about leaving the past. What about the same for guys leaving their past?
Absolutely.
That's
a two-way
I
street.
think that's something that applies across the board.
Absolutely, because sometimes you'll see guys get into relationships and they're so screwed, like with women, they've been so hurt, so screwed up by previous partners. They've been damaged. We're all damaged in every single way. We're all damaged. And I think one thing you think that as we get older, it gets easy. I mean, Scotty would probably appreciate this. Val would probably appreciate this. We're of the we're slightly older than you, lovely gentlemen. But, we have come.
Hey, Michael's older than me.
That's true. He is. Generation X, we actually come from that generation where it was, I probably think we saw and heard a lot that you wouldn't get away with in today's generation, and we have to cope with it. But it's like, would you say the damage that we pass on to the next generation, or do we actually? Because we're still carrying on in our relationships if we're not communicating, because she used to say that to me. She used to accuse me of that. I couldn't have said that to me. We're still carrying on that.
I always said, our parents have screwed them up. Then our parents screw us up. Then we screw our kids up. And it just keeps going like dominoes.
Well, there's that whole breaking the chain issue. Is that if my grandfather beat my dad and my dad beat me, 9 times out of 10 I'm going to beat my kids. We have to
nature nurture.
We're the ones that stop the chain. We break the chain if there's a change of bad things. I've got to go because I've got something I got to do with Rainey. But before I go, the one last thing I was going to say was that I think a very important point for men and women that love each other: never embarrass each other in public.
Amen.
Agree.
I don't mean there's not things you're not going to, what if the guy gets drunk and drops his drawers in the bar?
Not something that's intentional.
That's
not picking on
never
each other.
intentionally embarrass your spouse or
Right.
your partner.
That's-
Don't call them on the carpet. Don't but you're really bad at whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Right.
Save that for privacy. Don't put it on social media. Don't put it on, I'm so angry at my wife today because she did this and this. And if she was a good thinker, she wouldn't do that. We can't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that to your spouse.
I always say to people,
Totally agree.
finish that point, which is be careful what you say, because once you say it, you can't take it back, and it's remembered forever. Do you remember, like Jason said, do you remember when you said this to me, or do you remember that? So good point, Scotty. Thank you so much for coming here tonight.
Thanks for letting me.
Hubby.
I'll see you later.
That's got it.
Oh, yes, Radio Live. We'll see you tomorrow sometime.
We'll
talk about Tuesday, Robertson. And we'll get that figured out tomorrow. So,
yeah, you're supposed to say what time it is.
Mon ami.
No, you're supposed to say 5 o'clock.
I don't know how to get out of here.
Yeah,
we'll be here
at 10 o'clock UK. Robertson will be on at 10 o'clock on. I'm just going to change this to this one here. 10 o'clock on Tuesday nights and 5 o'clock, I think. And for is it you do it? You know.
Yeah.
It's been a very. It's going to be a
5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock West Coast time.
I'm literally just going to put this on a minute so everyone can just have one breather before we finish the show. And we can all breathe. It's been a very emotive topic, and I didn't realize it when I was chatting to Michael about it yesterday. I was thinking, people have also mentioned about bringing it, how emotive, Val, this subject would be, because
why'd you say me?
Well, no, it just brings it up. What I'm saying, we didn't realize how emotive the topic is.
No. Oh, yeah.
It brings up a lots of feelings.
Well, it brings up things that you think that you've let go of.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But
it's like little needles that just keep poking at you, hear it again and again.
But even though you deal with it better now, okay, I'll just say it. I deal with things way better now emotionally than I did, years ago. And I let things go and let things kind of roll off my back way easier now than I did before.
Let me get the glasses out here.
I like the necklace, by the way, Val. I've just been looking at it all evening, and I'm like, that looks really familiar.
It's the necklace my really gorgeous friend from the UK sent me.
I'm bringing in his chief wooden spoon in the building.
Yeah.
Here he is. How are you, Ken?
I'll tell you what, boy. I was sitting back getting towels together and some Vaseline for the cuts over the eyes and stuff. Hey, I was ready. I was in the corner. I would have been your corner man tonight. But I kept breaking up, kept buffering and all that.
Wait. Who's corner man?
You guys know I was in the corner. I would have been the corner man tonight.
Who's corner man?
Everybody's.
It doesn't matter.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
KB ain't stupid. He ain't put nothing on record he can't take back.
That's right.
I'm just saying. Say it, Ken.
I'm just saying, don't kill the messenger. That's all I'm saying.
I have no hard feelings for anybody.
No,
and that's what we're here for. We're here to discuss the differences between
us.
Open debate.
And I hope we've all learned.
I'll tell you what, I got a topic for y'all next week. Toys and all the joys. Makes somebody smile.
Well, yes, we do know that's on the topic. But Jason, it's he speaks from the heart as well. He also speaks from previous experience and the hurt. You can hear the hurt in his
Yeah.
voice, and also in Scotty's. It's very much so, and that's why we bring the guys on, because we also like to come from both sides, to so women learn from us and men and etc. But
Yeah.
Jason, thank you so much for sharing. How you feeling?
Yeah.
But I do
I'm
like the
feeling-
part when Val would hook him and he come up with the uppercut. Good job. Good job. I like that.
They were next
Yeah.
door. It wasn't that hard.
I
Hey,
like
it was friendly. It was. I
It
have
wasn't
no
friendly,
hard
but I did
feelings.
like that. Val came with a left hook. He came up with an uppercut. Good job. Good job. Yeah. Good job.
But, you know,
Look at that.
I
He's
think-
he's just stirring up the fight between everybody by encouraging everyone.
He's
I
an
love it.
instigator.
Exactly.
He instigates shit all the
But you
time.
know,
Well,
open
I- to-
conversation is the way we learn.
To
If you
answer,
cannot communicate, you will not learn.
yeah,
Mike,
And-
Mike, I saw your eyes bubble up. I ain't
No,
lying. I saw Mike's
I'm
eyes.
over here. I'm not.
His
I'm
eyes
over
got,
here
his
taking
pupils
notes.
got dilated. Mike's eyes got
That's probably-
dilated. He was
That's probably
thinking,
the cold medication.
but
That's
he
probably
kept
the
it
cold
cool.
medication.
He kept it under wraps. I can tell you. He kept it under wraps. I can see it in his face. But he just, he kind of got up and went somewhere and came back and chilled out a little bit. But yeah,
No,
I saw it.
No, that's
To-
the cold medicine. That's the cold
to-
medicine.
to
And he
answer your
doesn't-
question though, how am I feeling? I feel fine.
James,
There is a
cleanse the
obviously
soul.
there's a certain level of frustration over the topic, and I think it's because speaking from and this isn't a man or a woman thing, this is a person thing, speaking from a position where you have dealt with things, and from a position where you become subject to the punches related to the stereotypes when you don't actually fit the stereotypes, at least not for the reasons that are typically given. That gets very frustrating, and
Yeah.
things like that. But you know, if there was something that I would try to pass on to the viewers and to people who may be listening, or to any of you guys or whoever, when it comes to things like relationships and, you know, questions you were asking earlier with, you know, what advice would you give, or what would you say with, you know, communication and things like that? One would be never stop communicating. Okay. But that is also, the success of that also, though, is predicated upon how you communicate. And so one of the things that I would say that would create a lot of, it would reduce a lot of friction in the system if people spoke clearly. And when that's why, you know, when you say, when a woman comes to a man with the same problem over and over, and it's not getting resolved, there may be a certain level, or it is at least worth taking a hard examination of the method of communication that person who's gone to this person a million times trying to convey something. Maybe you're just not communicating it well. And I just use your example of a woman to a man coming to a man, because men have to come to women and say the same thing. If you are clear and you can be crystal clear without being brutally blunt, you know, to the point of being a jerk or cruelty or whatever, but you can clearly say, you know what? I need to be hugged 8 times a day to feel like I'm getting what I need from you. Say that. Don't be, I don't, you need to touch me more. Like, find, like, you're like, I feel like I'm not. Like, don't wrap it up.
You
And
were
that just
saying, like, bullet point it. Bullet
point it, make
Well,
it
Scotty
clear.
said the same thing earlier. Like you said, Scotty said the same thing earlier, where
Yeah.
women like to be touched more. Scotty tried to touch, but no. If I remember right, I mean, yeah, was that groping? Was that touching or groping? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I know when Scotty comes to hug me, I won't have to watch his hands. I don't want nothing on his bum.
I think
I
a
just-
lot of times it's kind of like it's frustrating because just for me, I understand what you're talking about. You know, as far as, okay, this is what I want, but it has a totally different meaning if you have to, like, make a list.
And I understand that. And you know
what I
I've
mean?
I had
It's
I do.
frustrating.
I do know what you mean, and I've actually
Yeah.
dealt with that kind of thing before. But you know what? I had to retrain my thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the thing is when it said, well, if I have to bring it up, they don't care. Da 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 da. Like, no, hold on, wait a minute. That doesn't mean if I have to bring it up or I have to clear it up, just say it clearly, or the you should read my mind crap.
But
Like
there's
Or you should
another
know what I'm
thing.
thinking. Yeah.
If
The one
I
thing that really gets me is when they look at me and say, "Oh, you know what I mean. You know what I'm thinking."
Well, there's a point where you can, I mean, instead of having to list everything, like I said earlier, little things like, if I'm washing dishes, give me a hug from the back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or,
No, and I'm
you
not.
know,
I'm
and
talking in
But
general.
what happens?
and I
though,
know
if
that you all men are smart enough to think,
if you can't
okay,
talk-
there's other things like that.
But what if you can't talk to the person because they're putting a brick wall up? What if you really want to talk to someone and they're putting a brick wall up? What do you do?
You know what? Honestly,
Time to
and
move on.
here's the
Time to
thing I
go.
gotta say. I gotta, and I know I'll get flack from this, or people pass judgment on me or whatever. But you know what? If they've put up a brick wall, they don't want to talk to you. You tell them, you know what? Hey, clearly you don't want to talk to me, or you won't want to talk about this right now. If you want to talk about it, you know where to find me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I know
you
what
go
you
about
don't
your
say.
way and you do your thing, because you know what? There is nothing you can do with that. I'm sorry. But anytime I've sat there, I've tried the hugging, I've tried the to explain it to me. How am I not understanding? Trying to do all that thing. When somebody has dug their heels in the ground and they're not budging, man, you let them sink or swim, and you roll the dice. If they come and talk to you, they come and talk to you. But at some point, you've got to cut sling load, because that crap's going to take the whole bird down with you and kill you and your crew.
You all are not going to believe this, but I totally and completely agree.
Yeah, but you know what? And I'll tell all the guys like this: if she gets all quiet and all pouty and moody, all thing I do is walk up to her and say, "You know what, honey? You're acting just like your mother." And she will most definitely.
Oh, that will get your legs cut out from under
That
you.
would be a very unwise move.
It's a great way to start
a like mine.
I always said,
Just for anybody out there listening, that's not a good move.
and another thing.
Yeah,
that
but the comeback would be when he says you're just like your mother, and then the woman would probably say, "Well, thank God I'm not like yours."
Oh,
that would be good.
And then you got a hell of an argument, because see,
Yeah, you do.
if he says something,
Hey,
well,
hey,
you're not like your
at least
mother,
you help them, right?
whatever, then people come back to you. I'm glad I'm not like your mother or father.
But you know what?
That's a
There's no more
comeback.
cold shoulder, and you're communicating. But it also goes back to I always say they always say marriage or relationship is 100%, and everybody's like, "Oh, I'll bring 100, she bring 100." That is mathematically impossible. Some
Everybody
days I'm like
brings
that.
no, it's 50-50. It has to be.
Sometimes
but
it's
let me
80-20.
Yeah,
Sometimes
that's
it's
what it is,
25-75.
Too many
JP.
times it's 80-20.
Yeah, JP makes a good point. Some days, if you're down and I'm not, it's my job to pick up the slack. And the days
Yeah.
I'm down, it is your, you know what I'm saying? And it's vice versa.
Yeah.
Because everybody cannot bring their full 50% every day. And your
No,
partner,
you have to hold each other up.
it's it, and communication. And going back to the military theme,
Oh, yeah.
the first thing they teach you in the Army is how to shoot, move, and communication. Communication is key. It's key to the mission. It's key to bringing everybody home safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
to understand. And I think
that's it.
Jason comes up with a good point of, if you can't reach someone, if they won't talk to you, and because in one of the promos
Get it
that come up,
out.
what is it if you've got things to say, but you just can't say them because some people just don't want to hear it? What do you do? And as I say, there's only so many times you can reach out and send a message or try and communicate or try and say, look, I need, you can only do so much. It has to be a two-way street.
Yeah.
And it does leave you feeling very frustrated,
Well,
especially when you go in your head with it and go, what have I done? What can I do? Is it me? That's a very dangerous path.
But you know,
Oh,
the
It sounds like a
old,
road, just got a road from separation. That's what it sounds like.
you know, but
another
the old-
another dangerous one is well, I'm gonna be stubborn and they need to chase.
yeah,
Listen
and
here, you dumb fuck. No.
no,
If you want that person, don't play that stubborn dig in the heels. If he really wants me, he'll come and talk to me, or he'll whatever. If she really wants me, no. Just say
No,
what you
no.
gotta say. Don't play the games. Don't do the stupid BS. Stop watching Dawson's friggin' Creek. All right.
Yeah.
And thinking that things play like that. Treat each other like adults. Communicate clearly and precisely.
Mhm.
All right. And hopefully you guys will stay together long enough to the point where you learn how to anticipate the other person's needs
Oh yeah,
once you have developed that. And it goes both ways. And yeah, like just stop doing the fucking romance novel shit and the Dawson Creeks crap.
But I
like
also
it
think
don't
sometimes
work.
people don't also know sometimes when to they might have tried. I mean, we all know in our lifetime we've all tried to communicate, and it doesn't matter what we do. And you could actually put your point across and say, this is what I want, this is how I feel, this is what, and you still reach that brick door. You still go into your head sometimes, and that's why I think that's when the analyzing and over analyzing, well, what about this and what about that? That's why you say clear communication is so important, because it actually just says, this is it. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I want. This is, this is the problem. And that's the problem. We don't seem to do that very well.
But there's also people you can make a list and highlight it, and they still are not going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's incumbent upon you or the offended party,
And
right?
well, no,
to make a determination that whether or not this is worth sticking around. And
that
worth my
is time to say, here's your list. I'm going home.
But you know, here's what I was always taught growing up. They said when a woman comes to you and say, "Hey, we need to talk," just go in there and just set the living room fire, because it's easier to deal with the fire department than a woman who is so pissed off. She sits down and says, "Hey, we need this talk."
Well, more than
You-
likely, if she's
well,
asking
see-
you a direct question, she already knows the answer. She's just saying if you're going to lie.
It
and
becomes
that's
rhetorical.
stupid.
Yeah.
That is
But-
stupid.
I
I gotta
mean,
see if they're gonna lie about it. Nah, man. So I saw you down at the supermarket with Sally, and you were touching her ass. You don't need to go see if they're going to admit to it. Like, don't.
But
turn
if-
it into a
if-
game.
All that.
God,
if
it's so
they,
stupid.
I think it depends. It all depends on the relationship.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's. I don't know. I am. Nobody is ever going to be able to convince me
Now,
anything
as far
other than
as-
being
as
direct
far as-
about it. As
As
being,
far as
that's bullshit.
testing someone, I do not agree on that.
That's bullshit too.
But if
Yeah,
you
testing
ask
ultimately
them, if
Yeah.
you ask them about it, there may be a reason. There may be a simple reason.
so it's gameplay. Is that what you're saying? It's all about the gameplay. I think women play more games when it comes to
No,
that
I'm
than
not
men do.
talking about that.
Both people can play games, but what is it you're trying to say about?
If I'm saying there may be a logical explanation for something you
Why
saw.
are you feeling this
or
way? To
you-
ask this question.
Yeah.
Is that what you? Am I understanding you?
If you say you saw them somewhere that they're not supposed to be, not necessarily not supposed to be, but you saw them at somebody's house.
Ooh.
You ask them, were you over there? But somebody might have their car. It might not have been them.
Yeah.
You
Oh, so
know,
you're
I
saying
mean,
this
there
is
could be a logical explanation for any of it.
It's so interesting because I'm obviously watching the figures going up and down here, but it
Yeah,
seems
Mike was
like
driving my car.
it's going quite well, the show tonight. I can honestly say that I really hope that people have
Oh yeah. Hey.
have listened and heard what we're, it's been a pretty lively show and it's been pretty emotive. And I got to say, you know, it's
And we can all laugh about it at the end of it.
exactly because we are all friends. But at
Well,
the same
hey, I'll say this.
All right.
Mike was driving my
Thank you.
car. Wasn't Mike? Mike was driving my car. Mike was driving my car.
You know what?
I didn't use it.
Ken, you can say anything you want
And-
to.
and-
I already know you
and
don't
here's
even
the
need
deal.
to.
what was it you said, Ken? What was it?
Mike had the car.
But,
Mike had the car.
here's
I'm
the
telling you.
deal, right?
Didn't you, Mike?
I know the truth. Don't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
try to
Mike's
get him
Mike,
to
yeah.
lie for you.
That's it. Yeah.
Mike had the car, I'm
guys, I
telling
know
you.
this, and the old running joke is, a wife said something to another. She said, I bet your boys will lie for you. They call like 9 people. Oh yeah. I see him. He's right here on the couch. He's too sick to travel. Guys usually cover down for other guys. And,
But
and then it's
I
like,
will
oh yeah.
say,
Oh, he's with me.
when I was a lot younger, I probably wouldn't have believed, if I saw somebody's car somewhere, I wouldn't have believed any explanation because in my mind I already had it. Now
So it's a no-win situation.
I'm totally different. So I've changed completely from the way I used to be. So I don't know if
Mike had
that
it
has to do with just age or
Mike always.
Well, age and experience and maturity. I mean, and
Yeah,
one
I
of the other
mean,
things too is once
maybe
something
a
like
little bit
that
of everything.
happens, once you're on the receiving end of something like that, if you're in a situation where you're on the receiving end of those behaviors, that assumptive type thinking and things like that, and it's something that normally you do, it's an eye opener because now you know what it is to sit in the hot seat that you have been putting people in for however long. You start getting that like, oh, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I need to change my approach. Maybe I need to, because I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah,
And,
that hasn't necessarily been the reason I've changed because it hasn't happened. But
I'm speaking in generalities.
yeah, I know. But I mean, I think mine is more, and I don't want to say just don't care anymore. I don't want to say that, but I think I'm much more. I'm a lot calmer about things.
That's definitely something we get to. Is I think I try and stay as calm, but then there are things that press my buttons, and I do come out flying, and that's just human nature. But I think what I'm hoping that we got over tonight with the lively chat and everything was the fact that to actually talk to each other in a productive, positive way, to listen. And as Jason says, sometimes just bullet point it, put it down on a bit of paper or put it down and say, this is what I need. This is what I'm not getting. You don't have to rip each other apart. And I'm a great believer of that. So I want to thank all you guys for coming on tonight and actually being a part of the show. Obviously, Ken came on, and I love when Ken comes on because he's always got that mischievous look, and he's like, I'm just gonna bring this back. I'm just bringing it in. I'm just bringing it.
The shit starter. Yeah. He comes and pisses gasoline on the campfire just to see it flame up.
I will admit I like to do the same kind of thing, but my thing is when I do that, it is to try to get people to think.
Yeah.
Because we get so stuck in our mental ruts that we stop to look at things from other perspectives. So, devil's advocate and things like that is a beautiful thing to have. We
actually were going to call this show, and we are thinking of doing this one. They're just not into you, because there was a real, and there's a point that we might actually still go and do that, because what would you say to someone, Jason, your wise words? If say you were out and there was someone in your life and you sent them a message and then they didn't get back to you, but they were also on other social media, but they hadn't got back to you yet, what would be your advice?
My advice would probably be to not overanalyze it. because 9 times out of 10, when you're sitting there thinking about it, it goes back to Occam's razor.
Yeah.
The simplest explanation most often is the most accurate and correct, situation or assumptions of what, the explanation for what's going on. Excuse me. That would probably be my biggest thing is just like, you know what? Chill. Sometimes people don't want to talk. Sometimes people don't want to talk to you. Sometimes your spouse or partner doesn't want to talk to you. It is nothing malicious. It isn't necessarily something malicious or that they're mad or whatever. It's sometimes they're just not in a communicative mood. And we got to realize that, sometimes people just get like that. And, if you're sitting there and you've messaged them 75 times in the last 35 minutes and you're not getting a response, well, now more than anything, you're probably just annoying the crap out of them. And if they haven't seen your messages, because I've had things where messages come through on different platforms, but don't come through on others just because of signal or reception or whatever. They're either like, holy crap, they've just messaged me like 75 times in the last half hour. What is this person's problem?
Yeah.
Or they come back to 75,000 messages and it's like, Jesus, I was out of signal range for like 30 minutes.
Well, what if it's
Yeah.
just the one
Off the net.
or,
Yeah.
or two or whatever? What is that? It's the same thing.
How do you mean?
Sorry, there's my cat just jumping up on me.
Mine's wallering me to death.
Don't get in your head. Don't get in your head if just don't go there.
Yeah. I mean, if you sit there and you think about it all the time, you're going to sit there and catastrophize with it. You have to learn to stop the catastrophization of events, So when I was in the Army, I was a master resilience trainer, right? They sent me to course for 2 weeks at Fort Jackson to be a master resilience trainer. And one of the things that they addressed in that, in terms of talking about resiliency, was stopping the catastrophizing. And so you have this spiraling thoughts that keep going down, and it starts off from, Bobby Sue didn't text me back in 10 minutes after oh my God, now they don't want to talk to me. No, they're mad at me. Oh no, they're seeing somebody. Oh, they're probably shacked up in bed right now with doing whatever, my whole world's going to end because of this. I had all of these dreams, and just all the spiraling thoughts. And you have to learn a way to disrupt that. And one of the ways that they taught as a method, not the method, but a method, was to start inserting absolutely ridiculous things into that spiraling thought. Like, well, this is going to happen. And then next thing you know, that's going to create a gravitational well, which is going to draw Mars into orbit with the moon. And now the seas are going to rise. And that's not going to happen. It's ridiculous. So you inject the ridiculous and it breaks the cycle.
Point to say that if somebody wants to talk to you, they will. If they
Yeah.
don't talk to you, they won't. And
Right.
you can't force anyone to do that. You can put your as you say, put your point across, be clear, and leave it with them, and that's all you can do.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that is all you can do. And the best thing for you to do is go about your business. And then when they come back, you can talk about it.
Yeah.
The catastrophizing and the worrying about everything does no one any good
Good. No.
at all.
But on that point, if I come back to 75 to 100 messages within 30 minutes, I'm going to think, is she off her meds, or does she need to be on her meds? Because that gets to be into a compulsive disorder thing, and it
Right.
shows a thing of
There's
control.
other issues, yeah. Control
See,
issues.
my ex-husband was like that.
Yeah, it's
I
like,
worked at a bank. I couldn't be on my phone.
Oh,
On lunch, I would
who you
have
talking to?
Oh yeah.
100 texts
Yeah.
because
Why
it's
ain't you responding? Yeah.
pick the phone up. What are you doing? I'm working.
Common
Yep.
sense dictates that if you're at work, you're working, and you're not.
I
readily available to
I worked
take
at a
calls.
bank at the time. I couldn't just sit and talk to
Yeah.
him all the time.
But I want.
Yep.
But I was going to say, but before we get out here, y'all two have been very entertainment between taking my cold medicine and being entertained. It takes a lot for me to sit back and be quiet. Like I said, I had a whole bunch of stuff printed out. You know, I didn't even need it. I sent my boy JP in. He took care of it. He got it across. Even
Michael,
He'll
watch it.
drop fire
I
and get
live
yelled
pretty
at
close
later.
to you.
time be pretty, but you know, I'll let JP handle it.
It's been as I said, it's been a very lively show, and I
I'm like,
want to
wow.
thank Steph for coming on and for being part. It's nice to have a new lady on tonight. Thank you, Steph, and to Scotty for coming on as well. For everybody that's commented, for Ken coming on with his big wooden spoon, and I just want to remind everybody, which I always do at the end of the show. Scotty Roberts is on the Intrepid Radio Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on YouTube and Facebook. Ken, are you back this week with your show?
Yeah, I'll be back. I will be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Rant and rave a little bit. I mean, something to do with call.
KB show.
So, if you're sitting around the house,
Hey, I've heard that before.
And you're lonely, join me for morning coffee. Yeah.
Please, before I go, like, just say it. Just say that what you. Just say what you know. What you say. No. The whole. If I don't know it, gone.
Oh, you talking about when we talk about politics?
Don't be a fear.
We talk about the paranormal. We're talking about the three letter word sex. If I know nothing about it, you're not the only one that can fake it. Who said that?
So watch KB on Facebook Live. I will be back on Tuesday night with my podcaster hubby, Mr. Scotty Roberts, on Robertson, and the lovely Val and I will be back next week. And Caitlin will be joining us in a couple of weeks. She will be back. She's just taking a bit of a break, but she'll be back.
And I am trying to start. I'm trying for February to start Miss Legend and the Paranormal back.
What about Mr. Wicked? Mr. Wicked, don't you have something coming up? Show us something.
Yeah, we're going to do the smoke pit. I'm working on it. JP has a move coming up, so we don't want to get really, really involved, and he has to tear down shop and move from the cold and snowy north back down towards Missouri. But I got something I want everybody in the audience who watch Wicked Women, Roberts, KB, or whatever. I want to see Wicked Women get to 500 subscribers so I can get them sponsored. I looked at that this morning on how YouTube does their partnership thing, and one of the thresholds is 500 subscribers, and that should not be that hard to click, like, and share, because it's like when I'm doing the family tree for the kids here. 2 people tells 2 other people, and it goes out. Then next thing you know, there's 4 people out there.
All right.
Well, in a land,
trying.
In a land. Yeah. What is the population of the UK? It could happen in the UK, and we have a lot more in the United States than just that.
I think a lot of people have found us easily. We're Wicked Women 888. There is another Wicked Women on YouTube, but we're Wicked Women 888. But like, share, subscribe. Tell their friends that it's an emotive show. And I want to thank you and Jason, Michael, for coming on and coming on with your points. We love you boys on. Keith was on in the comments earlier on as well. And we will be back next week. We'll be back at 10 o'clock UK time. And I'm going to let Val do the other times because she's good at that.
5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central. Is that right? 3 o'clock?
Yeah, 3 o'clock Mountain time.
Mountain, yeah.
We have to include the Mountain time. Canadian viewers as well.
And 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock California time.
But I just want to leave the last word. If there's something you have to say to someone, please do. Life is really, really short, and before you know it, you've run out of time to say what you need to say to someone.
Well, I will say I'm really not a bitch. So regardless of what people think after today.
No, she's not.
I swear I'm not.
She's very supportive. But if there is things you need to say to someone, life is really short. Please do. And in the meantime, I want to thank everyone again. Please take care of each other and yourself. And we'll see you all again next week. Good night, guys.